Chapter 368 Rediscover. Chapter 368 Rediscover. Elite Coder. Zhuo Fan was listening to Yun Xuanji's every word. People's fates are ingrained in the world. Although choices are innumerable, anything hardly throws the world out of balance. My belief was firm in this truth, and with my ancestors' eyes, I was able to point out a safer path for the people. But 8 years ago, something happened that collapsed my faith. Zhuo Fan curled an eyebrow. Seeing Yun Xuanji gasping, he muttered, "High Priest, restrain your grief. Who hasn't been disappointed in the world? Ha ha ha, you think I fell in despair because everything I knew had been turned upside down?" Yun Xuanji sighed, "Perhaps, but I was more surprised than anything. I used to think every life is bound to the world's laws. The more I saw, the duller the world became. That is why the Yun clan has always lived in tranquility and never engaged in power play. But that moment opened my eyes, that not everything was set in stone. Heaven and earth are keeping us prisoners while still presenting us with a way out. All that is left is for us to find it." Clueless to high heavens, Zhuo Fan scratched his nose, cursing the old man. What the hell had the old coot been smoking? Yun Xuanji laughed in reply to his thoughts. "Steward Zhuo doesn't look too keen to delve into the mysteries of fate. Then I shall speak plainly. 8 years ago, you killed Yugichi in Blue Expanse City. Your act defied fate. His destiny was fraught with dangers, but it was not meant to be cut so short." Zhuo Fan's heart seized. 8 years ago was his first turning point in Tianyu, the one that made him, famous. All the fate-defying that came after this event went way over his head. You mean to tell me fate includes killing? What am I supposed to do? Wait for the auspicious day when I want to kill someone since it wasn't in the stars for him to die earlier? That only meant this parish ought to change jobs, scrying for an assassin's target's due date. Or no matter what the killer tries before the due time, all attempts would be for naught. Yun Xuanji knew his thoughts before they had even formed. Each man's fate is linked with the world, just like the starry sky. And every one of them touched one another through unseen rules and intricate interactions. Since everyone has their own will, they all take different walks in life. But the path to death never even existed for Yugichi at that point in time. It only appeared 20 years later. In a time of great national unrest, the news of his death shocked me to the core. I turned to the sky at once and found a dead person still alive. Along with him, the strings of fate were now entangled, and he had escaped the ties that bind. Every single action of his changed the fates of everyone he met. The strong become weak, and the weak turn strong. Like a demon archon incarnate, he literally flips the world upside down. High Priest, you don't mean me when you mention demon archon, right?" Zhuo Fan pointed at his nose, blinking his big puppy eyes. Yun Xuanji smiled. "What do you think?" "Ha ha ha, you know better than anyone. Just how many people's fate has taken a sudden and unconceivable turn on your path? Luo clan, a washed-up third-rate clan, is experiencing a complete rebirth, as the head of the 8 noble houses. If not because of you killing Yugichi, Blue Expanse City's Shui clan would have never served under Sword Marquis abode. Their third mislife would have run its sordid course. Drifting Flowers Edifices was destined to be Regent Estate's first victim in their house unification plan, greatly bolstering their power, all leading up to a huge civil war. All it took was one particular man, you, and Drifting Flowers Edifices made a comeback from the brink of death. Regent Estate's plans were thwarted, and on it goes. Need I say more? All of this sounds like fate's plan to me. Maybe I'm just Regent Estate's nemesis, the one to turn all of it around." Zhuo Fan stuck out his nose as he spoke with sophistry. Yun Xuanji nodded with a smile. "Perhaps, but my eyes still fail to see any trace of fate around you. As if you are walking between two worlds, having long since shed the shackles of destiny." Heart tense, Zhuo Fan may speak tough, but he was already starting to believe it on the mushy inside. Although he was allergic to this bullshit called fate, this old coot was right about one thing. He truly was walking between worlds, that of the living and the dead, an ethereal stage. Losing his body could live on by possessing others with his soul. But that was no true rebirth, since he didn't die to begin with, while demonic Emperor Zhuo Yifan had his soul pulverized, annihilated. Luo clan's servant, Zhuo Fan, of meager cultivation, was also struck down, yet through the mysteries of the 9 Serenities' secret records, Life was born anew from these two strangers housing one body, a life walking the thin line between the living and the dead, yet above the laws of this world separated. They were dead, but together they were at least half alive. Steward Zhuo, I don't know how you did it, but please believe me. Your very existence changes everyone's fate as they know it. Yun Xuanji paused for effect, then continued in a heavier tone, I intended to keep this matter hidden, but in exchange for your trust, I will tell you a secret. The one you killed, Huangpu Qingtian, had all the qualities and fate to be a ruler. He had a high chance of becoming the new emperor. What? Zhuo Fan could hardly believe his ears. He was always of the belief that Huangpu Qingtian's rants about providence this, providence that, were just that, rants, and a heavy dose of narcissistic tendencies. But now, even the high priest vouched for him, making it all the more crazy. Yun Xuanji sighed. I had seen into Huangpu Qingtian's fate, and a single glance told me that he had the disposition of an earth dragon, a prime candidate to be a king on this earth. But fate is a forked path. Where there is death, there will always be life, and where there was life, death wasn't far behind either. At the time, I spoke of 3 tribulations he had to pass to achieve his destiny. First was heaven. With the king's advent, the dragon's soul shall return. Huangpu Qingtian earned its recognition in his childhood for a reason. This tribulation, he passed. Zhuo Fan nodded. Dragon Vein Soul was a savage being, with not even a radiant stage expert capable of subduing it. Yet Huangpu Qingtian, a pipsqueak, did it, complementing each other and training the Earth Dragon Claw. It's gotta be fate. There's no other explanation. The second tribulation was of father and son. Estate Lord Huangpu Tianyuan is a decisive and stalwart person. If Huangpu Qingtian wanted to do anything, he had to seize power, to steal his father's seat. This ultimately broke the ties of father and son beyond repair. All he had to do was to be a savage himself, throw away his clan and steal his position. This would have brought him one step closer to being an emperor. Humph, the punk was savage all right, just look at his rotten attitude. Zhuo Fan scoffed inside. It's obvious that this tribulation was a walk in the park compared to the first. The final tribulation, the most crucial one, was sin. Huangpu Qingtian is a tyrant in character and actions. With everyone considered dirt, his sins weigh heavy on his shoulders. If he would have gone soul-searching, reassessing the worth of a person, he would have been a prime candidate to become the next emperor. 20 years later, regent estate would be at his beck and call. At the peak of his power, the clash with the imperial family would be nothing more than a skirmish to him. And 4 decades later, he'd become the ruler of Tianyu and establish his own dynasty. That seems highly improbable. With that guy's obnoxious attitude, the thought of self-reflection would have never crossed his mind. Looking people right in the eye instead of his nostrils would already be a huge improvement. There's no way he would have passed the third tribulation. Zhuo Fan dissed his words, but now the regent estate can no longer vie for power and has nothing to do with me anymore. Yun Xuanji shook his head. People always change. As I understand, the recent years have been too peaceful. If Huangpu Qingtian had lived, he may very well be able to overcome this tribulation. A pity he stumbled upon you, a man outside fate, and his future was cut short. A grave loss. Yun Xuanji sighed, while Zhuo Fan scratched his nose. High priest, for you to tell me so much, there has to be a reason. Why? For the good of the people. Yun Xuanji stood up, giving the flabbergasted Zhuo Fan a deep bow. I have deep knowledge of fate and its inviolable nature. Even if forced to change, it will only make a detour. Slowly but surely returning back on track. Hence I am filled with pain seeing the people suffer yet powerless to help them. Now that I see that Steward Zhuo has the power to change all that, I dearly wish Steward Zhuo will keep the fighting to a minimum, for the sake of the people. Fine, I get it. Zhuo Fan waved him off before he went on. High priest, I took you for an intelligent man, but now I see that you're quite senile. 1 second you call me the demon Archon incarnate, and the next moment you ask the same demon Archon to save the world. Yun Xuanji held his gaze. You were a demon Archon. Still then later. Still will. Zhuo Fan's tone was firm. Yun Xuanji sighed. You have escaped fate, so why insist on walking the old path? I do not know who you are, but looking at your past exploits that got you here, they're not at all the actions of an ignorant child, but those of an expert reborn. Going from there, a reborn expert must have faced true death once. But have you ever taken a moment to consider that this rebirth, and having escaped fate, is all about rediscovering yourself? Zhuo Fan shook from head to toe. Not only had he guessed Zhuo Fan's origins but the heart of this old demonic cultivator rediscover. In less than 10 years, unlike his past life which was focused solely on cultivating in the sacred domain, he had met countless people, gotten in touch with all kinds of feelings he never knew existed that had given him a whole new look on life. These were all events he had never experienced before. Maybe this life was heaven's way of elevating his state of mind through countless events for the next time he became a demon emperor. That truth freed him of worry and brought peace. His death as demonic emperor may very well be a blessing in disguise. What's in it for me? Zhuo Fan was back to showing his trademark evil smile. He may have accepted Yun Xuanzhi's proposal, but on the inside he was still rotten. Chapter 369, Holy Maiden Yun Xuang. Chapter 369, Holy Maiden Yun Xuang. Elite Coder. Yun Xuanzhi smiled after persuading Zhuo Fan's rebuttal into a half-agreement. As for the price, he had that covered. Steward Zhuo, changing fate benefits the nation. It is the highest form of good you can do. From now on, my clan will follow Steward Zhuo to the ends of the earth. Going against heaven's plan is the way for the future. We'll do anything to prevent Steward Zhuo from burning the world and ruining the lives of innocents. Zhuo Fan's face lit up. His heart tickled pink. The third pillar, parish, would answer to him alone. It was the best kind of help. With High Priest Yun Xuanzhi known to all as demigod, he could peer into heaven's plan yet not through Zhu Fan. Regardless, this way he would have accurate information regarding those sneaky devils that wanted to stab him in the back while he was assaulted by beasts from the front court in his reverie. Yun Xuanzhi was the one to wake him. Steward Zhuo, my clan has always been neutral. But for the sake of people, I will make an exception just this once. Last night, I peered into the sky and found the Luo clan to be on a constant rise. The only ones strong enough to crush its advance are 4 powers. Care to elaborate? Zhuo Fan raised an eyebrow. Regent Estate, the Earth Dragon, Imperial Family, the Crouching Dragon, the Empire's Prime Minister, Zhuge Changfeng, the Hidden Dragon, and… Yun Xuanzhi squinted and sighed, having reached this point and gestured to the north. My greatest worry and greatest menace upon the people, Chuanrong Empire, the vile dragon. Eyes squinting, Zhuo Fan cried, the same Chuanrong Empire that the imperial capital's factions have beaten down thousands of miles away from here? What do they have to do with us? Don't tell me they'll take this chance to attack. That still doesn't involve the Luo clan. That will be right up Dugu Zhantian's alley. I am unclear since I am not part of the court meetings and do not understand politics shrouded in cloak and dagger. I only read the night sky and these 4 are the ones most likely to level the Luo clan. Yun Xuanzhi sighed, wheels turning for a while. Zhuo Fan's eyes had a lost gaze in them, not seeing the connection. If I take Yun Xuanzhi's word for it, whose side is Chuanrong on then? Zhuo Fan's mind jumped back to the esoteric debate, thinking of the time in Beast King Mountain and the good days he spent with that foreign lass. He found her a little bit queer. Is someone within our empire spying for the Chuanrong Empire? How else do you explain another country's interference in times of Tianyu's civil war? He then turned to the first 3 factions. They all had the minimum power to cooperate with each other, and this had him grow extra cautious. I was too naive to focus only on the first 3 factions. Each of them is despicable and vile enough to pull outsiders into this country's problems. God damn it, are they that thick in the head to not understand the simple truth of keeping it in the family? First he cursed them and then rejoiced. He thanked his lucky stars that he came by Yun Xuanzhi today and found out about this important info, or this ace would have remained hidden until it would sting him hard with a rushed bow. He spoke, "Thank you, Elder Yu, for your wisdom. I will make arrangements at once. I am not about to let outsiders encroach our lands and put our people in peril." Ha ha ha, for Steward Zhuo to realize this truth, I am more than gratified. But before you go, I have a gift for you. Chuckling, Yun Xuanzhi turned to the kneeling child outside the door. Xiao Dongzi, go bring Shuang. Right away. The child left. Zhuo Fan put on a puzzled look for the high priest. What treasure is he giving me? But all he could read from the old guy's vague smile was nothing. Moments later, The child came back with a brisk ringing of bells and a fragrance that assaulted Zhuofan's nose. It soothed his mind and cleared his heart, and then he heard the sweetest voice. "Grandfather, you called?" Zhuofan flicked his head back to meet the clearest eyes and fairest skin, sending Zhuofan down memory lane. Ninga. They were not, in fact, similar at all. She was prettier than Xue Ningxiang by a long shot, but Zhuofan found one trait identical. Both of them had that innocent vibe. Like the highest snow on the tallest peak, unmarred by decadence and evil plaguing this world. "Shuang'er, come." Yun Xuanji had a cooing tone as he gestured her over. "She is my granddaughter, Yun Shuang." Zhuofan made a curt nod and a silly smile found its way on his face. He felt too similar to when Xue Ningxiang was around, and for no particular reason he became chipper. "Hi, I am Luo Clan's steward, Zhuofan." "Hello." Yun Shuang smiled back and bowed, shaking the little bell on her wrist. Yun Xuanji approved, then dropped the bomb. "Steward Zhuo, Shuang'er will be your servant, tending to all your need." "What?" Zhuofan and Yun Shuang's eyes were about to pop out. "Grandfather." Yun Shuang teared up at Yun Xuanji's inflexible expression. Zhuofan waved all over the place. "High priest, your help is more than enough. Why must you make such a repulsive proposal? Do you take me for a lech? One who sits on men and gets fresh with women? To the point that I'd go for my allies' people? Ha ha ha, this is precisely why. Why else do you think I'd throw my dear granddaughter into the jaws of a tiger?" Yun Xuanji said, "To be perfectly honest, she is like me and has the same eyes I do. She is to become Yun clan's 8th clan head, Holy Maiden Yun Shuang. I leave her with you to guide you when needed and to stop you from bringing calamity to the people." In the esoteric debate, you lost all reasoning, forcing the hidden and opportunistic Luo clan to come out in the open far earlier than necessary. For the Luo clan and for the nation, it was a grave lapse in judgment. Flushing red, Zhuofan scratched his nose. He was clear on what a dumb idea it was being such a hothead when facing Huangpu Qingtian. As they say, hindsight was 20/20ths, but some things were meant to be done even if they were clearly unreasonable. He would do it all over again even if he had to choose again. "I'd never rest easy until he died." Yun Xuanji gave Zhuofan a shy look, her eyes turning pitch black with faint glimmers flashing deep within. Just like Yun Xuanji, she then cried, "Ah, he has no fate. Is he the one grandfather always talks about, the anomaly who broke the ties that bind?" "The same one. Luo clan's steward, Zhuofan." With a chuckle, Yun Xuanji, who was very fond of Yun Shuang, spoke. "Shuang'er, don't blame me. I don't have any choice. It's the only way to save the people, through him, who changes fates. He is a man of cruel methods, not one bit kind. Even capable of tormenting innocents. I can only have you stay by his side, to guide him on the righteous path and save the people." High priest, with all due respect, are you by any chance cursing me? Is that wise? Zhuofan spoke his 2 cents. Yun Xuanji just shook his hand. "Ha ha ha, Steward Zhuo always sees himself as a cruel man. So how could those words count? Just take them as a praise." "High priest, now I know why you said my shameless character made you nostalgic. You haven't changed a bit, still hanging on strong. I may be shameless, but not even I am like you, cursing someone in their face. You're too kind, really." Steward Zhuo just got unwonted contriver so angry he almost spat blood. "I am far from your match. As they say, every generation outmatches the last. Kids these days get stronger every day." Yun Shuang watched the two bicker between the lines and giggled. Yun Xuanji patted his dear granddaughter's head, pushing her over. "Steward Zhuo, Shuang'er is in your care. She will be of help to you. Please don't abandon her, she isn't a burden. I can't always be there to guide you, but she can. She is useful." Quirking an eyebrow, Zhuofan felt that the old man was hinting at something while emphasizing her ability, but nodded anyway. "The coot is right about one thing. Having a scryer by my side is far better than running over here every other day." Thus they came to terms. Yun Xuanji saw them out himself. Yun Shuang barely wanted to leave, with tears welling in her eyes, but Zhuofan's forceful pulling got her away in no time at all. "This is a treasure right here. Waste not, want not." This scene would instantly slap another infamous rumor on the ever-growing list that was Zhuofan, that of him being a human trafficker. What no one noticed though, was the pair of cold eyes watching them from a dark corner moments later. a shadow flashed, and words entered his ears. He mumbled and scoffed, "Humph, this suicidal old coot, neutral for a century, and now he decides to make an exception." The figure vanished. And the sky above the parish darkened swiftly, bringing with it rain and piercing winds. The high priest faltered at this change, and his carefree mood turned serious as he sighed, "What matters is not what becomes of my name, but the good of the people." Ha ha ha. After a weak laughter, his eyes flickered with a staunch resolve. Chapter 370, Kidnapping. Chapter 370, Kidnapping. Elite Coder. Schwanger, hope you don't mind me calling you that. On their way to the Luo clan, Zhuofan and Yun Shuang were walking abreast. But he always had a vile and sinister smile each time he looked at the lass, like she was a super rare treasure. Yun Shuang shivered and tears welled in her eyes. The way she saw Zhuofan grinning was like a stranger being handed a candy, and it scared her out of her mind. Zhuofan laughed, "Ha ha ha, Miss Schwanger, there's no need to be scared. Your grandfather placed you in my care to help me complete my master plan. In fact, we're on the same side. Once this is all over, you are free to go home. With how we little know about each other from the past few moments, you can still be sure of my character. Just stick with yours truly and you'll be going places. I will make a celebrity out of you. I will take very good care of you, hey." He didn't realize that all this boasting might have something to do with how this girl had the same character as Ninga. Yun Shuang broke out in giggles. She kept looking at him for a while, before finally scrounging up some courage. "Steward Zhuo, grandfather warned me many times that you are a bad man and I am to lead you down the path of righteousness. But you don't look so wicked to me. Ha ha ha, that's why I said you don't know me." Shaking his head, Zhuofan laughed inside at the gullible lady. Then, a sudden wind picked up and covered the two in yellow dust. Zhuofan cried, "Poison! Schwanger, hold your breath. Hi, useless. My poison can pierce even a radiant stage expert's defenses." The creepy voice stabbed the two's ears as the yellow dust grew thicker around them. Zhuofan grimaced as he watched the world spin. "It's a sedative." With a plop, he fell down, out cold. "Steward Zhuo," Yun Shuang cried just as the yellow poison drifted towards her. She held on for a few seconds before blacking out just like Zhuofan. 3 men flew over. One was an elder with long yellow eyebrows drooping down the sides of his wrinkled face. A flick from him made the yellow dust go back into his sleeve. They were mighty pleased with themselves seeing their quarry was out for the count. Ha ha ha, and here I thought the best steward beneath heavens was something to fear. One move from me and he fell all the same. The yellow eyebrow elder laughed. His cronies bowed in praise. "Ancestor Huang Mai, your poison is invincible. Not even Pill King Hall can match you." Smiley face, Huang Mai equals literally, yellow eyebrows. "Humph, Pill King Hall is nothing compared to me." Thinking back to when Pill King Hall invited me to be their venerable, we compared poisons, but wasn't it them who fell short each time? All they have for themselves is an empty name. The ancestor mocked, "Second prince only wants Zhuofan. What do we do with her?" "Ancestor, I heard Zhuofan always carries himself with pride and indifference and has few people he even cares about. For this girl to be walking next to him, it can only mean that she is one such person. Let's take her as well. It might be for His Highness's benefit." One of the men bowed and Ancestor Huang Mai nodded. He wrapped the 2 bodies on the ground in yellow dust and flew away. The other 2 rushed to catch up. This easy win had gotten to their heads all right, or they would have noticed a shivering person not far from here. Having been witness to all of it, a closer look would instantly place her as Princess Yongning's attendant from the award ceremony. "Oh God, this is Hugh. I have to tell the princess." The child finally regained her wits after a long 15 minutes, scampering for the imperial palace in panic. In less than an hour, the panting child presented her badge to the gate guards. I am the princess's maid, let me in." Meanwhile, in the princess's chambers, a fatty was wiping the overflowing sweat on his brow as he panted, "Yongning, come out. I'm dying here." The fatty shook the ground with his collapse, cursing still. "What the hell is wrong with this place? Why is it so big? For no one but the emperor to move in a palanquin is so unreasonable. That rule is clearly aimed at my poor self. Then what are you doing dashing around the imperial palace? Why don't you stick to your manner?" Hi. A giggle came from beyond the doors. Princess Yongning came from inside in a cheerful mood. Fatty turned to look at his younger sister. You think I want to run over to this blasted place? Regardless of its importance, Imperial Father always sends me on errands. While the elder brother handles files in the Imperial Palace and the second brother tends to the guards, patrolling with them each day. Only I, the accursed big-boned, unloved by my father, get sent outside whenever, wherever. I bet the farther he sends me the better he feels, wishing I won't get back at all. Sigh, the world can be so cruel to this poor plus-sized man. Third brother, you must have lived a long and hard life. Yongning caressed the big lug's head, but the smile never left her face. On the verge of breaking the facade, the fatty's mouth twitched, flicking her hand away. Stop patronizing me, sister. I came here on official business. It is father's punishment for you for sneaking out. He knows. Yongning jerked and her face sank. Third brother, how did father find out? Did you all tell on me? And you call yourself brothers? Rolling his eyes, the tubby sighed. Yongning, I haven't said a word. Running around the nation round the clock has me dead on my feet. I don't even have time for anything else, much less report you. As for the elder brother, he's toiling hard as well, pushing papers all day every day. When would he get the time off to tell on you? To say nothing of the second brother. You saw him growing up, how his only drive is elder brother. He's not so bored as to give you trouble. Then who told him my secret? Princess Yongning frowned. If I ever get my hands on that person, I'll tear them to pieces. Fatty was watching her in a daze, then shook his head. Yongning, you're no angel either. Even if we didn't know a thing, he'd still hear about it. Father is the emperor with countless spies under him. Aren't you a bit delusional thinking you can hide your actions in the imperial capital? You're right. Thanks to your reminder, now I know it must be those rumored shadow guards. Creeping about like ghosts, some clingy maggots and pestering pests. Am I right? Yongning clapped and vowed, they're the ones. Who else could have known I sneaked out? The fatty gasped, then put on a bitter smile. Yongning, are you sure you aren't playing with half a deck? That little sneak of yours outside the gates was out in the open for all the houses to see. Why mention the shadow guards when everyone knew? Besides, the shadow guards are father's secret force. No one knows who they really are. All that is known is their captain, the fourth pillar, Shadow King. Even the other pillars are cautious around him. Aren't you perhaps having an overinflated idea of yourself, thinking a big shot like him would set his eyes on the little old you? What little old me? Aren't I a princess? Yongning threw a tantrum. Fatty sighed. Yongning, we're getting nowhere. Might as well accept father's punishment. Princess Yongning, receive the edict. Yongning obeys. May His Majesty have a long and prosperous life. Yongning fell to her knees, with utmost respect. Fatty turned solemn as well. By order of the Emperor, Yongning has sneaked out of the palace and lost all semblance of propriety. You are hereby confined for 1 year, subjected to change depending upon your behavior. A year. Yongning fell to the ground in shock, her face ashen. A whole year stuck in the Imperial Palace. That was the heaviest blow she had ever received. Fatty regarded the downcast princess in pain and was going to say a few words, but a child rushed over in panic, crying all the time, Princess, something terrible has happened. What happened? Why are you panicking? Yongning sighed. What could be worse than being grounded for a year? And didn't I tell you to invite Schwanger to read me? Where is she? Gasping, she blurted, didn't get the chance. Miss Schwanger and Zhuofan were kidnapped. What? Yongning and Fatty cried. I saw it with my own eyes. Princess. Lu Zhu vouched. Who did it? The Fatty frowned. I heard them mentioning the second prince. What? Fatty and Yongning jerked at once. Fatty's face was whiter than paper. Second brother has really done it now. A prince engaging in kidnapping? And with the high priest's holy maiden and a house steward no less. Lu Zhu, you come with me. I am going to give him an earful. Humph. Yongning scoffed, pulling Lu Zhu towards the emperor's study. Lu Zhu merely bobbed her head and followed. While Fatty ran out of the palace, aghast. Third brother, where are you going? Shouldn't we tell father? Yongning shouted. It's too late for that. Fatty gnashed his teeth. Late? Yongning was bewildered. Since the second brother had them kidnapped, they should be safe for the time being. How can I rest easy? And I'm not worried for them, but for my second brother. Old Second must have lost his mind to move against that savage. You can mess with the king of hell, but God help you if you step on Steward Shua's toes. That line said back in the esoteric debate wasn't just for show. Fatty wiped his brow and his face was flushed. His blubber butt actually moved with uncanny grace for once. Gone like the wind, Yongning figured the situation was far graver and rushed as well. Chapter 371, The Savage Rouses. Chapter 371, The Savage Rouses. Elite Coda. Whoosh. The image of a perfect blue sky was ruined when a yellow smoke made erratic movements all over it. It landed in a huge yard, revealing the person within it was Ancestor Huang Mai and his cronies. Each was holding a knocked-out hostage, Zhuo Fan and Holy Maiden Yun Shuang throwing the baggage to the ground. The trio cackled clap tilde. With a slow clap, a nice-looking youth came over with a dozen people behind him. It was Yuan Yong. Second Prince gave the baggage a curt nod. Whenever the yellow wind blows, nothing can catch him. Ancestor Huang Mai lives up to his reputation. To have even Zhuo Fan, the pain in the rear of all the houses, tied up, I am in awe, ha ha ha. Hi, thank you, Your Highness. I am not like those nobodies, undeserving of their name. I had him captured even before I got to show what I was made of. I feel ashamed sometimes, undeserving of the Second Prince's praise. Ha ha ha, Ancestor is so modest. I'm sure that it is not Zhuo Fan who is weak, but Ancestor's skills are out of this world to have achieved such swift success. Ancestor, you will have the 10 8th grade pills, rest assured. Second Prince clapped and laughed while Ancestor Huang Mai gave out his creepy cackle. With that out of the way, the Second Prince turned to the baggage. He flipped Zhuo Fan over and snickered at his dreamy look. Is this all the best steward beneath heavens amounts to? This is what you get for ignoring my invite. Then he turned to Yun Shuang in confusion. Ancestor, who is this? Hey, not a clue. Since she was with Zhuo Fan, she has to be someone important to him. I figured the girl would be of some use to Your Highness, so I brought her along. Ancestor Huang Mai shrugged. Second Prince chapped his lips with so many praises. That's so nice of you, Ancestor, ha ha ha. He flipped her over as well, putting on display all that made her pretty. He was amazed. Holy Maiden Yun Shuang? Ancestor, how come you've kidnapped someone from Parish? You mean I can't? Ancestor Huang Mai was confused, squinting. The Second Prince took a deep breath and showed a twisted smile. No, you are perfect, Ancestor. In fact, I'll add 2 more pills as thanks. What? Ancestor Huang Mai blanked for a second, then laughed. Thank you, Your Highness. He thought he had brought along a mere girl, but she proved to be of value, earning him a bonus. Giving Yun Shuang a good look, Second Prince said, Ancestor, could you wake her up? I have some questions. Easy. Ancestor Huang Mai nodded and pulled out a vial from his ring. He hovered it under Yun Shuang's nose and said, This is my prized narcotic, 1,000 Years Dream. Not even a radiant stage expert can fight it. Their only chance at waking up is if I help them. Hey. Ancestor's skills are amazing. I am in awe. Second Prince cupped his hands, then waited for Yun Shuang to wake up. 15 minutes later, with a melodious sound, Yun Shuang stirred. The first thing she saw was the Second Prince's warped smile. She cried, Ah, Second Prince. Miss, there's no need to fear. You are a valued guest of my manor. You're safe here. Grinning, Second Prince made a gesture for silence. Yun Shuang looked at him distraught. She shuddered backwards as she took in his accomplices with a heavy heart. Her 5th layer of Profound Heaven stage could hardly count as anything against the 9th layer Profound Heaven experts around. To say nothing of the 5 Radiant Stage experts. The biggest shock was the yellow eyebrow Ancestor. In the 8th layer of Radiant Stage, looking at so many big shots around her, all she saw was death. Then she glanced at Zhuo Fan having the sweetest dreams imaginable and shook him. Steward Zhuo, wake up. Wake up. No use. Zhuo Fan was sleeping like a baby. Ha ha ha, miss, save your energy. Only my antidote can wake him. Ancestor Huang Mai laughed. Yun Shuang bit her lip, growing frantic and fearful of the men around her. She knew Zhuo Fan couldn't do a damn thing as he was, but she stuck close to him either way. The closer she was, the safer she felt. Snickering inside, the Second Prince put on a genial smile. Miss Shuanger, I've heard of you being a holy maiden. But with all of Parish's rules and other obstacles, I've never had the pleasure of paying you a visit. Imagine my surprise when you came to me instead. You honor and humble me with your presence. Humph, what valuable guest, you kidnapped us. Yun Shuang scoffed. Second Prince laughed. True, but it's fine. All that matters is that you are in my home and that makes you a guest. And let me tell you, I do know how to treat my guests. Though there is just one small detail that has been vexing me for a long time, something that I hope you can clarify for me. What? Yun Shuang asked. Second Prince gave a deep bow. I've heard that Miss is the same as the High Priest, with eyes that can read the heavens, able to look into a person's fate. Would it be possible to glimpse upon mine? Am I? Second Prince was getting excited and shouted, fit to rule? Not in your life. Yun Shuang was stubborn and shot him down there and then. By Yun clan's ancestral teachings, we have always been neutral. We look after the people, not the rulers. Peeking into the empire's fate is taboo and against the Yun clan's principles. I cannot help you. Second Prince's face fell and he snorted. I see, ancestral teachings, is it? Why then I heard that 20 years ago, the High Priest had read Huangpu Qingtian's fate? How is that the same? Yun Shuang explained, Huangpu Qingtian was a child then. His fate was full of twists and turns. He had yet to mature into someone being fit to rule. You, on the other hand, are fully grown and have fewer turning points. If you do have a dragon's disposition, it will come to pass more often than not. And reading it will mean revealing heaven's plan, inviting heaven's wrath and bringing hell upon the masses. She shouldn't have said that. Now the Second Prince's heart was thrumming in his chest out of excitement when Huangpu Qingtian died. His fate as an emperor wasn't certain, and even if he had the disposition of a king, he still couldn't overcome the tribulation called Zhuofan. But the Second Prince was different. His fate was set in stone. Once determined, it would come to pass. Summing it up, all Holy Maiden had to do was to say that he had it in him to be an emperor and no one would stop him. He'd have a smooth sailing towards the throne. Second Prince's delusion of grandeur grew so much that his eyes were bloodshot. What are you waiting for then? Bask your eyes on my regal self. Tell me if I have what it takes to reach the top. I told you already. I mustn't. Second Prince held a 5th-grade spiritual sword and poked at Zhuofan's throat in his lunacy. I heard you two are close. Look already or he dies. Easy, your highness. He is after all the one His Majesty bestowed the best steward beneath heaven's title. We will also have to answer if anything happens to him. Someone urged in the Second Prince's ear. Second Prince glared and roared, Codswallop. Once I take the throne, best steward beneath heavens isn't worth shit. He now turned to Yun Shuang and threatened, look or I will kill him. Didn't the Yun clan always come to people's aid? Are you going to let this man suffer? Yun Shuang was torn. She couldn't watch him die nor go against her ancestors' teachings. She just couldn't choose. She glanced at Zhuofan's dreamy face and recalled her grandfather's warning. Zhuofan was an anomaly that changed fates and she was to guide him on the straight and narrow path. Recalling Zhuofan's selfless act of jumping in front of her to meet the poison, she finally made her choice. Zhuofan had to survive. Fine, I will. Yun Shuang nodded. Second Prince was jubilant. He took back the sword and straightened his tunic. Then, Holy Maiden, if you please. Yun Shuang closed her eyes and the next time she opened them they turned into a sucking abyss. Just that in that endless darkness faint glimmers shone, like stars. After a while, she regained her normal sight and sighed. What is it, Holy Maiden, am I? Second Prince couldn't control himself with joy. Yun Shuang nodded with a relaxed smile. How fortunate, you are not fit to rule. I didn't go against my ancestors. Oh, such a blessing. Boom. Second Prince's mind exploded. His face twitched as he babbled, Holy Maiden, aren't you mistaken? Do it again. Grandfather has taught me since I was a child. There's no mistake. Yun Shuang stated, you are unfit for the throne. Don't waste your breath. But I will tell you this, my kindness to you. The path you tread is fraught with danger, towards eternal doom. Turn back and you may live a life of peace. If you don't, you damn liar, you dare to deceive me, I'll kill you. With a roar, the Second Prince denied this wretched fate with all his being and even lost his mind. Holding out his sword again, He slashed at Yun Shuang. Yun Shuang shrieked and curled. The sword failed to cut even a hair from her head as it clanged in the vice of a dragon claw. What came next was the cackle of a demon. Ha ha ha, you fool, even if you were fit to rule, the instant you grabbed me your fate was doomed. Chapter 372, Leveling the Prince's Home. Chapter 372, Leveling the Prince's Home. Elite Coda. Clang. With a sharp and faint sound, the second prince's prized 5th grade spiritual sword snapped in two in that dragon claw's grip. To everyone's horror, Zhuo Fan stood proud and tall before Yun Shuang, roaming his cold gaze on the guards and stopping on the second prince with a snicker. Simply because of a declined invite you decided to kidnap me? I gotta hand it to you, that takes guts. Zzz Zhuo Fan. Second prince babbled, staggering back in fright. Yun Shuang burst in joy at the high and mighty figure. Steward Zhuo, are you alright? Ha ha ha, never been better. Like I said, stick with me and you'll be going places. Only I can push others around. The others won't ever get the chance. Stick with me and no one will touch you. Zhuo Fan gave a thumbs up and a grin, going back to showing off his swag. Yun Shuang giggled and blushed. His jokes worked wonders in easing her worries. Ancestor Huang Mai cried in disbelief. How? Only I can wake you from my 1,000 years dream. If there's one thing I don't care about, that's poison. Be it narcotic or necrotic, they got nothing on me. I am where I am because neither Regent Estate nor the likes of those 7 houses, Pilking Hall included, could cope with me. So what could a rookie like you do? I only faked being asleep, curious as to who had the nerve to pull something like this. Squinting, Zhuo Fan kept on mocking, his hand swirling with black energy as he turned to the second prince. Lo and behold, it was this dumbass. Something's still bugging me though. How in God's name did the wise and shrewd majesty end up with this gung-ho fool of a son? Even Miss Schwanger's reading proves you are the farthest thing from a ruler. Does that make you not a prince? Yun Shuang giggled and punched her cute fist on Zhuo Fan's chest, then rolled her eyes. Second prince's shock had now turned into full-blown rage, his breathing ragged as he glared at Zhuo Fan. Zhuo Fan had spat the bastard right in his face. And the all-important prince had only one logical reaction to this, to snap at this naked humiliation. Ancestor Huang Mai, what are you standing around for? Get that miscreant. Second prince roared and pointed at Zhuo Fan. Ancestor Huang Mai had had enough as well and shot yellow smoke for Zhuo Fan. You little scamp, do you think everyone is beneath you? Have a taste of my power, 1,000 years dream. Yun Shuang ducked behind Zhuo Fan, who only smirked in disdain as the black energy covered them. Who tilde? The yellow smoke wrapped around the two in seconds. Ancestor Huang Mai stuck his head out in pride at the second prince, but an explosion cut his chance at boasting. The yellow smoke went for a spin, and as it did it only got thinner to reveal the black mass in the center, demon transformation art. Zhuo Fan called the blackness back inside, his eyes looking icier by the second. What happened to my 1,000 years dream? Ancestor Huang Mai stammered. Zhuo Fan looked at him with a cold stare, his voice dripping with malice. Ate it. Ancestor Huang Mai was sweating buckets. Zhuo Fan was more of a monster than the rumors had him pegged. He had shrugged the narcotic off like it was nothing. The ancestor knew Zhuo Fan was a body cultivator, his greatest weapon were his own 2 fists. Now that the narcotic was a bust, a poison user like him was a sitting duck, fated to die at the crazed Zhuo Fan. That being the case, his best and only choice of action would be to run like hell. Ancestor Huang Mai gave a quick salute to the second prince and said without the slightest hesitation, Your Highness, may fate allow us to meet again, fare thee well. Oh, and don't forget, Your Highness still owes me 12 pills tilde. Ancestor Huang Mai flicked his sleeve and ran like the yellow wind he was. Second prince stomped in anger. This old coot can't do a damn thing and still expects me to pay? I hate his type the most. He didn't get to curse though as the yellow wind slammed back into the yard. Hard. Ancestor Huang Mai was sprawled on the ground, blood leaking from his mouth. Next to him was Zhuo Fan's cold face, his red flashing right hand clutching the old man's neck humph. You mess with me and now you want to run? You think you can just get away with it? Zhuo Fan's eyes shone with savagery. Ancestor Huang Mai cried, Steward Zhuo, spare me. Second prince made me. Pa. A resounding cuff over the old guy's face cut his whining short. Zhuo Fan snickered, we both know I'm no fool, so stop stating the obvious. While he is the culprit, You are his lackey. In both cases, no one's leaving this place alive. SSS tilde. Gasping, Ancestor Huang Mai was overwhelmed by Zhuo Fan's capacity for cruelty, going so far as to kill any who wronged him. If he had known, he'd never have accepted the job even for 20 pills. As the black energy oozed out from Zhuo Fan and he noticed the naked bloodthirst in his eyes, Ancestor Huang Mai turned white as paper, including his eyebrows, as he begged, "Wait, Steward Zhuo, don't kill me. Let me go and I'll do anything. Isn't your Luo clan newly promoted? You must be short on men. I am an 8th layer radiant stage expert. I can stand on your side, pledge my life to you." The black energy hovered for a second while Zhuo Fan was weighing the proposition. Ancestor Huang Mai's eyes lit up and he grasped at straws. Too late though, as Zhuo Fan shook his head and the black energy shot forth. "Sorry, we already have a poisoner, the Alchemy House's elder, Vicious Pill King. We don't need you. Him. He's just a profound heaven cultivator, while I'm in the radiant stage." Ancestor Huang Mai cried. Zhuo Fan shook his head. "Ha ha ha, I've handpicked every elder of the Luo clan myself. None of them will balk in the face of death. This is where you fall short." Zhuo Fan punctuated by having the black energy cover swallow Ancestor Huang Mai whole. Funny how he did the same thing Ancestor Huang Mai had done to him. The stark contrast was that the black energy was far deadlier. Everyone had a front row seat to Ancestor Huang Mai's miracle diet. He was thinning under the naked eye. Swallowed by the black mass, his face twisted every second. The diet only came to an end when his very being was reduced to absolutely nothing. Second Prince crumbled to the ground in horror. His radiant stage men were all shaking as well, holding their lord as they made a slow crawl backwards. Zhuo Fan was only in the 3rd layer of profound heaven, yet to everyone present he was nothing short of Qianyu's #1 expert, a freak. With how even Ancestor Huang Mai was dust in the wind, how could they fare any better? Yun Shuang pursed her lips, watching the cold stone killer with fear. It was a first for her. To watch a man die through such means. Grandfather had told her that he was the vilest person to walk this earth, and she was there to set him straight. But they were chatting and laughing just a little while ago. He even jumped to her defense in her dire need. He looked nothing like an evil spawn. Only now did she come face to face with Zhuo Fan's cruel and insidious nature. Tilde. Zhuo Fan showed an evil grin seeing the empty space in front of him, then turned to the pretty boy and his gang shaking like a leaf. The second prince turned guileless, acting like a bad boy who had gotten caught and huddling with his guards while waiting for punishment. As a Steward Zhuo, "I know my mistake. I won't do it again, honest. Please let me go, just this once." Second prince's voice quivered. Zhuo Fan got before him and snickered. "Next time? If there ever will be a next time, that old fart's death will look like a joyride compared to yours. Got that? Why? Second prince's teeth clattered as he bobbed his head. The guards kept mum. Despite the clear humiliation their lord was facing, what else could they do? They could fight the monster to their last breath, but would it do any good? Who'd be dumb enough to mess with this savage that not even the 7 houses dare to? Oh, right, the second prince is one. They all were wailing inside, though neither criticized their lord out loud. Zhuo Fan saw him rooted in place and patted his cheek, warningly. "For your pretty boy face, I'll leave it at that." Second prince eased his breath, but Zhuo Fan kept on talking. "Though I won't go easy on you either. Leaving you with a little homework will do good for your character." Zhuo Fan's right hand flashed red and he smashed the ground. The savage's fist leveled Prince's home. Chapter 373, The Worst Evil. Chapter 373, The Worst Evil. Elite Coda. Tilde. A red wave shot out from the point of impact. The sudden explosion blew the entire area it covered, pulverizing anything within 100 miles and sending the sand sky high. Second Prince's group was too out of it to notice the floating sand that had buried them the next second. All that they knew was gone in a wink. That included the 80-mile-wide residence of the Second Prince as well as the surrounding buildings. In the aftermath of Zhuo Fan's fist, the entire imperial capital shook, reaching the brink of collapse. In the imperial palace's gardens, the emperor was having another round of chess with Sima Hui. Only this time, the emperor wasn't as peaceful. With all the players coming to the imperial capital, it had gotten even the emperor to worry. A large earthquake happened and flipped the chessboard. The emperor shouted, "What is it now? Your Majesty, we only know that it came from the Second Prince's manor." A guard reported the emperor was glum and snapped, "What has the old second done this time? Go find out. Right away." The guard rushed away. Sima Hui paused, then cupped his hands. "Your Majesty, that wasn't just a small commotion. May I go check on the second prince? I fear for the worse." The emperor waved him off with a sigh. Sima Hui bowed and shot to the skies at the prime minister's residence. A man in black was whispering in Zhuge Changfeng's ear. But the sudden rumbling broke all the pottery. Zhuge Changfeng stared for a moment, then mocked, "Humph, the young sure are bold. That little monster isn't easy to handle, even for me. Yet that lame-brain kid went and provoked him? Ha ha ha, that's a calf for you, ignorant and foolish. This lesson I reckon ought to be a cruel one." Zhuge Changfeng closed his eyes and a faint smile appeared. Meanwhile, at Hell Valley's residence in the imperial capital, Yuanshan and his elders were in a small room when the earth wobbled under their feet. Though it never broke their calm, he finally acted, and got crushed at last. Yuanshan sighed. They knew since long ago that the second prince wanted Zhuofan on his side. They weren't the second prince's first allied house for nothing. They even gave a stern reminder to that half-wit. Zhuofan was one tough customer, but they figured, did this obstinate twerp no good advice when he heard one? It would only work to incite him. So, these wise foggies shut the door in his face instead of being under the same heel of that savage. As the second prince was right now, Zhuofan's action was loud and clear for everyone. Yuanshan turned to Yuming. "This kid is too rash. Is cooperation still viable? We have no choice, not when all eyes are on Regent Estate. The fodder is always the first to fall, and that is what we will become if we stick too close to it. Of all the princes, the eldest prince is too shrewd to side with and the third prince sloppy, leaving the second prince as the only viable pawn with some use. The choice was made for us." Yuming sighed. "We are at the crossroads. Hell Valley's posse sighed as well. How could we be so foolish to end up like this?" The other players also noticed the obvious flagrant disturbance. Fatty and Princess Yongning were gunning for the second prince's home when the earthquake struck, followed by a wave of sand. It pressed so heavy on them, they found it hard to even breathe. Once the sand settled, Princess Yongning blew it away with a gale. Imperial capital is a picturesque landscape. Where did all this sand come from? I bet that brat had something to do with it. Paling, Fatty wiped his brow as he sped up while muttering, "I hope we're not too late. They say the kid is hell-bent on toying with others. Hope he hasn't made his move yet." Princess Yongning asked, "Third brother, did you say something? If we are too late, we'll be seeing the second brother's corpse." "No, there might not even be a corpse left. For God's sake, what is wrong with the second brother to keep harassing that guy?" Fatty face-palmed. Princess Yongning was clueless. "Eh? Aren't we going to save Zhuofan and Yun Shuang? Why is the second brother the one in danger? Humph, that freak never needed our help from the beginning. You think the second brother's thugs can hold him? Who knows what state the second brother will be in after Zhuofan's done with him. I sure hope there's still a breath left in there somewhere." The fatty shook his head and Yongning looked more than a bit puzzled. "You mean to tell me that Zhuofan is so amazing that even as a victim, he is the one wrecking second brother's home? And that he'd go as far as to kill a prince? Oh, Yongning, these matters are beyond what your pretty little head can comprehend. The world is filled with evil. But Zhuofan takes the cake, the worst evil of all. It's fine if you don't step on his toes, but once you do, God help you. There is no low he won't stoop to." The fatty sighed. "Do you know the Regent Estate's eldest young master? Do you know what a hero he was? Well, even he didn't get away, ending up being bitten to death by Zhuofan. From then on, the saying 'you can mess with the king of hell but never with Zhuofan' spread everywhere." Yongning blinked her purty eyes. Yet no matter how gruesome a picture Fatty painted, it only worked to incite her to figure Zhuofan out. "I wonder, just who is this worst evil to make the whole world, even princes and Regent Estate, fear him?" Her step quickened. To save second brother, sure, but more so to see with her own eyes the oddity called Zhuofan. The streets flashed by and the duo arrived in no time at the scene of the crime. But the scenery had them speechless. The grand second prince's mansion was nowhere to be found, replaced by sand and more sand. All the people stared around dumbfounded at the desert in the heart of the flourishing imperial capital. Two people were noticed in the vast sea of sand, Zhuofan and Yun Shuang. The girl was even standing on a tile, as if to not mar her beauty nevertheless. The sudden change in scenery even had Yun Shuang slack-jawed. It finally dawned on her. Steward Zhuo was not just evil, but a calamity. One whose very existence was to torment others. Yun Shuang's eyes flashed with resolve as she stared at him. Tilda. Groans came from the guards as their heads popped out of the sand. They paled at the world of sand around them and shouted, "His Highness! Where is His Highness?" Zhuo Fan's first order of business was his trademark evil smile and then strolling before a flat portion of sand. He shoved his hand in and pulled. His harvest, a pale human being, and not just any human, but the second prince himself, Yuan Yong, just that the guy was in torn clothes and a retarded look painted on his face. Without the cocky attitude, he looked more like a refugee, shivering all over second prince. The guards shouted, but stopped the instant they saw Zhuo Fan's cold gaze. Zhuo Fan smiled and shook the prince like a rag. "You want the throne, right? Hi, what a wonderful dream. See how I'll peel the respect off of you, flogging you on the streets of the imperial capital, and subjecting you to all humiliations imaginable. Such a prince can never get the throne, since he has no respect to speak of, unless he's the only successor." Zhuo Fan squinted, as if he was teaching. Second prince was shaking like a leaf, his head too. "No, I beg you, please don't do this to me. Or I can never remain a prince. Brother, please do me a solid and leave the second brother be." A simple laughter echoed. Zhuo Fan knew who he was, pinpointing the incoming wobbling ball of lard. "Ha, fatty, you sure are a worthy brother. I'm sure you know of my temper by now, yet this second brother of yours had the balls to kidnap me." Zhuo Fan finished with 2 resounding slaps on the second prince's face, so strong that he spat 2 teeth and blood. Then he resumed in his standard evil tone, "I merely want to tie him up and parade him in the streets. Besides, I'm only trying to help. Who knows what idiotic and retarded idea some other miscreant will come up with next to use against me. I am not a patient man and don't feel like dealing with each one of them." Fatty nodded. "Brother Zhuo, I see. The world is crawling with ignorant and reckless people, but he is my second brother. Please let him go. You already made an example of him, right? Ha. Yeah, you turned the second brother into looking like this, and leveled his house. Isn't that enough revenge?" Princess Yongning pouted, glaring at Zhuo Fan, yet she couldn't put her heart in it. She was even partial to Zhuo Fan. By speaking of revenge, she was justifying Zhuo Fan's actions. The fatty twitched and rolled his eyes. He knew Yongning didn't mean it, but still felt forlorn. "He is your second brother while you've only seen Zhuo Fan in passing a few times. What are you doing giving an outsider an excuse to trash your family? Have you finally got your eyes on someone?" Chapter 374, Fated Marriage. Chapter 374, Fated Marriage. Elite Coder. Looking at the fatty and Yongning, Zhuo Fan laughed. "All right, I guess I can spare the kid, for your sake. But get this straight, you two owe me one, each. And sooner or later, you're going to pony up." Brother, we only have one second brother. Let him go and we will owe you a favor, of course, but what are you doing asking one from each of us?" The fatty's face darkened. Zhuo Fan's eyebrow rose as he chuckled. "It's not my fault that both of you asked me to let him go. That makes it 2 favors. When the time comes and I need you, you better own up." Damn grubber. That was the unanimous thought on everyone's mind. But the more they looked at the second prince hanging by a thread in Zhuo Fan's claw, the more they had to nod. Zhuo Fan laughed and threw away his pawn. He went to Yun Shuang and said to Fatty, "Let's stop here. When I need something, I'll be sure to drop by. See why." And left with Yun Shuang. Princess Yongning rushed to hold Yun Shuang back. I and Shuanga are practically sisters and wish to get together after not having seen each other for ages. I mean, Shuanga must be shaking from that terrible fright, and as her sister, it is my duty to look after her. Third brother, you go on without me. Yongning, I am not really, Yun Shuang explained, but Yongning shot him a look. Zhuo Fan snickered. Princess Yongning, Shuanga is a profound heaven expert, while you are far below her. Why would she need you? Humph, how about this then? When a girl suffers a devastating trauma, it is irrelevant to one's cultivation. What do you men know? Yongning's eyebrows kept moving as he taunted Zhuo Fan. Fatty frowned. Yongning, that's enough. You think I can't tell what you're up to? You're trying to get out of being grounded. Even if you do go with Miss Yun Shuang to Parish, Imperial Father will have someone drag you back. Oh, Fatty, you're mistaken about something. Miss Yun Shuang is coming to Prosperity Compound, to be with the Luo clan and not returning to Parish. What? The two jerked in shock, then looked at Yun Shuang. She was the holy maiden of Parish, the next in line to be its clan head. Then why did the high priest send her off to someone else? Yun Shuang's eyes reddened and she nodded. Grandfather had me become steward Shua's attendant and tend to his needs. Nani? Needs? Smiley face. Nani is the literal translation here. Loanword from Japanese, meaning what? Guess author tried making a funny. Fatty's eyes burned with a fire not even the second brother's plight could stir. Shua Fan, you vile beast. I used to think you were only 90% evil, but now I see that you're capable of stooping so low as to even force yourself on innocent maidens. Talk, how did you blackmail the high priest into making such a humiliating decision? Princess Yongning glared at Shua Fan and stopped in front of Yun Shuang, whispering, Shuanger, don't worry. I won't let this vile demon lay his claws on you. Shua Fan glanced at the two and shrugged. Yun Shuang was waving all over the place. Beat red, you've got it all wrong. It's not like that at all. Grandfather found Steward Shua too evil and wanted me to guide him. That's why. Oh, I see. The two royalties saw the light at long last. Fatty only gave Shua Fan a long look and sighed. Miss Yun Shuang, your clan strives for the betterment of the people, which I admire, but I must stress one important fact. This person, or whatever you want to call him, doesn't have just evil proclivities, but is pure undiluted evil, a demon. A wretched, revolting, vile spawn that even hell spat. Hey, wasn't I only 90% evil? How did I become pure evil? I haven't forced a lady in my entire life, now have I? Shua Fan rolled his eyes. Fatty mocked, what does that count? With your infamy, such an act is second nature to you. You've got a point there. Shua Fan nodded pensively. The girls giggled next to Shua Fan. When Shua Fan didn't flip out, he was quite a nice-ish human being. He didn't bother with the details, nor was pedantic. Quite refreshing compared to some gentlemen. One would go as far as to say that he was leagues above those self-righteous officials that, of course, applied to his time off of killing and unleashing mayhem. In any case, changing him is like moving mountains. Not getting corrupted yourself along the way is already a miracle. The Fatty sighed. Luo clan's young miss used to be so kind and polite. But now I hear she's been broken in, shrewd and cunning, all the more reason I should stay with Shuanger, to not let her be led astray. Yongning found a good excuse for once. Fatty shook his head. Do what you will. But don't think I'll take the blame when the Imperial Father hears about this. Yongning giggled and hugged Shuanger close. Even kissed her. Shua Fan didn't argue either, leaving with a salute to Fatty. As for Tubby, he had to stay behind to clean up all this mess and calm down the traumatized second prince, but the Fatty did care for his sister, not forgetting to give Shua Fan some stern warnings. Shua Fan took her with open arms, of course. Who knows, the apple of the emperor's eye might hold some use yet. In every moment of every hour, the only thing on Shua Fan's mind was the grand scheme of things. Even while trashing the second prince, he still knew when to stop, as to not yet set the imperial family against him, but letting him off easy was out of the question as well. Each and every word he spoke to the second prince was beautifully woven in meanings beyond mere rebukes. Second prince knew now that he was not cut out for the throne. And in his moment of despair, Shua Fan gave him a good nudge. Kill the rest and you'll be the true successor. The imperial family was boiling on the inside and all he had to do was to be a patient angler. In the tripartite plan, everyone wanted out of the deadlock, but neither wanted to stick their neck out. That only leaves forcing them to stick out. The emperor uplifted the Luo clan with the same purpose in mind. And Shua Fan incited the second prince for the same thing. I'm only curious if Fatty figured it all out since he stopped me from giving further advice to the second prince. Not that it made a difference. The seed of a power play has already bloomed in the second prince's heart. Glancing at the dazed second prince laying on the sand, Shua Fan showed a grin, then walked away with the girls. Fatty turned from Shua Fan to his second brother and sighed. An hour later, Shua Fan arrived at the regent of Prosperity's compound. All of the Luo clan was in, or after his short explanation of the facts, Zhuo Fan was out on a stroll to Parish, yet returned with not just the great holy maiden, but a princess young miss. Settle them in. I will be in seclusion for 3 days. Zhuo Fan said to Luo Yunchang and walked out back. Luo Yunchang nodded and took the guests to their rooms. On their way, she turned a hopeful gaze to Yun Shuang. Miss Shuanger, can you really read fate? Yun Shuang nodded, puzzled inside. Where is this young miss going with this? Does she also want to know if the Luo clan is fit for power? She couldn't be further from the truth. Luo Yunchang blushed as she said, Miss Shuanger, could you perhaps look into my fated marriage? Yun Shuang was stumped, then sighed. A girl's heart sure isn't like a man's. She smiled, of course. Luo Yunchang laughed. Please tell me when my wedding will come. Yun Shuang nodded and her eyes turned into sucking abysses. Once she returned from her reading, odd, your wedding should have long passed. It's not necessarily bad, but I find that it was broken at some point in time. Maybe. Her eyes shone for a second, then she shook her head. Forgive me, but I cannot see your wedding. Why? Luo Yunchang cried. Yun Shuang sighed. Because of Steward Zhuo. Your wedding should have been 8 years ago. But Steward Zhuo, who is outside fate, changed your fated marriage. This drove your current fate into chaos and I can no longer see it. You mean, he broke my fated wedding? That makes him responsible, right? Luo Yunchang's eyes shined in glee. Yun Shuang was startled, then nodded, ostensibly, he is of some fault. Great. Thanks, Miss Yun Shuang. Luo Yunchang had never been happier. Yun Shuang was clueless. Yongning at the side, shook her head and said, Shuanger, what about mine? Meanwhile, in a dark, damp cell, a grizzled and bloody old man was nailed to a pole. His shoulder blades had been run through, he was robbed of his cultivation, and was on his last breath. He was the parish's high priest, Yun Xuanji. He was surrounded by shadows. High priest, you crossed the line. An aged and familiar voice came from behind the veil. The high priest gave a weak laugh. Yun clan has always strived for the people. We've never crossed it, unlike you. Did you talk about it to anyone, including Zhuo Fan? The voice turned cold. The high priest shook his head. That matter is too dangerous and can't be spread. I will never harm the common man. Well done. Whoosh. A chain flew from behind the veil and into the high priest's heart. The high priest shuddered and his head slumped. Ha. Since he didn't talk, the game is still on. The cold and sinister laugh came again. Chapter 375 Ill Tidings. Chapter 375 Ill Tidings. Elite Coda. In a 100-square-meter stone room, Zhuo Fan nodded after looking around. Although not as huge as the second prince's compound, the Regent of Prosperity's compound had everything. Not a bad cultivating room. He set up a body refinement array on the floor and took out the abyss phantom butterfly's wings instead of turning it into a flying demonic treasure. He had gotten so used to having wings that Zhuo Fan found it a better choice to have them stick on his back. Tracing his hand over the 20-meter-long blue wings, Zhuo Fan sighed and grinned. He was mighty pleased when the crown prince came bearing this gift. Staring at the dazzling light show from below and feeling the coolness from the array, Zhuo Fan's hand moved through the gestures. Along with a flash of lightning, the wings slowly melted into the array. Zhuo Fan trembled, having since refined the Chilean leg. Doing the same with a mere 7th-level spiritual beast's wings was a cinch. Even the shattering of his bones got no reaction out of him. Zhuo Fan sat in the array for 3 days, with eyes closed, uncaring for the outside matters. All this time the array worked its magic in reconstructing his body in every which way, but it always returned to his original form in the end. Zhuo Fan opened his eyes and stood up. His back writhed and spectral wings unfolded, releasing a charming and enrapturing aura. With a flap, a gale took the room by the storm. It was then that the shades of blue shone all over and wrapped around Zhuo Fan as if he was walking among blue sunshine. Zhuo Fan knew his body best. If there was any expert near him, the glow would have sent him to dreamland. It all depends on one's soul strength, but the least it can do is buy me a moment. Thus, this 3rd-layer profound heaven stage cultivator with his new 7th-level spiritual beast wings, not only had his speed bolstered, but that blue glow around him made for a natural defense. It was a neat trick, good in offense and defense. Independent of his actions, Zhuo Fan laughed in pride. With a twitch of his brows, The wings withdrew and he walked outside. His mood soured though, when his right eye stung. With a hum, a blue glare shot from his eye and 3 golden halos flashed within it. Divine Eye of the Void, 3rd stage. Zhuo Fan was stunned and then laughed again. By sheer luck, his refining actually upgraded his Divine Eye of the Void. When he thought about the 3rd stage skill, he knew why. It was because of resonance. Taking a different path towards the same goal, it would have taken him far longer otherwise, but since he got it already, he wasn't about to look a gift horse in the mouth. He got stronger, didn't he? He could finally put up a fight against an ethereal stage expert that had his blood boiling, briskly walking outside. He was on the lookout for a good sparring partner to test the 3rd stage on. Rumbling, he creaked the stone door open and the glaring sun's rays along with the fresh air lightened his mood. Now, who'll fight me? Zhuo Fan roared before he got to play hide-and-seek with Li Jingtian and his other elders. Graceful curves approached, nudging him to be quiet. Steward Zhuo, all evil begins with violence. Please exercise restraint. Zhuo Fan was stunned. He turned around to see Yun Shuang there. Excessive is all I know. And how did you know I was coming out of seclusion? Zhuo Fan frowned. Did your eyes reveal it to you? Be that as it may, they can't see you. I've been waiting here all this time for you to come out. With a smile, Yun Shuang struck the image of a fairy as she handed him a towel. Here, freshen up after your toil, and let it brighten your day. Ah, thank. Hold up, what are you up to? Zhuo Fan came to midwipe. Yun Shuang's sweet smile came along with her genial tone. I am your attendant. It's in my job description. And I do need to guide you towards good. To do that I will have to keep you happy all day, every day. Lest emotions run amok and you'll turn evil again. I also got you this. Yun Shuang took out a booklet. Zhuo Fan read the title, 3-character classic. Smiley face, a text written in the 13th century to help kids learn the language. Made up of 3-character verses, easy to read and learn, i.e. kiddie stuff. It's for children. Zhuo Fan blinked at Yun Shuang in daze. Yun Shuang nodded with a smile. People at birth are naturally good. It'll do good for your spirit. Try it. I won't read a goddamned word. I've roamed the world for too many years to have any use for a bint's teachings. Zhuo Fan slammed the book on the pavement and shoved his finger in her face. Miss Schwanger, I didn't ask you to be a servant, nor a tutor to right my wrong ways. I only need you to read the heavens and tell me the future. All you have to do is tell me what the other players are doing and I can take it from there in figuring out their plans. With your eyes and my smarts, we will have control over everything. That's your role. Yun Shuang gave him a long look. Her smile deflated and she picked up the book in sadness. Zhuo Fan shrugged and asked like nothing happened. Now, what have the factions been up to these days? I didn't look. Yun Shuang pouted, then stomped away. To save the people, you must have a righteous heart. Until you're re-educated, I won't even peek. You. Zhuo Fan gnashed his teeth and spat. Then what are you still doing here if you aren't looking? I'm taking you back. We're going to Yun Xuanji and having him look. Zhuo Fan pulled her outside. Yun Shuang was so distressed, tears welled up in her eyes. Dragged around, her feet left deep marks in the ground. Luo Yunchang and the princess were chatting merrily when they saw them whiz by and caught up in distress. What's going on? Luo Yunchang only had to see Shuanger in tears to know. Zhuo Fan must have shown his evil side again. Zhuo Fan did the same thing back then, at the foot of Blackwind Mountain. Though these crass and harsh outbursts had tended to die down over the years of spending time around his clansmen, while to outsiders, he had no restraint whatsoever. The vilest of the vile Yun Shuang hadn't been around him long enough to see this side. Anyone who'd witnessed one of his rage episodes would be just as frightened. Shielding Shuanger, Luo Yunchang glared at Zhuo Fan. Steward Zhuo, what did Shuanger do for you to scare her like this? Yeah, Shuanger is so kind, doing everything you ask of her. You must be at fault here to pick on our Shuanger. Princess Yongning puffed out her chest, hugging Yun Shuang close. Apologize this instant, or I'm telling Imperial Father. Zhuo Fan looked at the three of them and sighed. It hasn't been that long and these girls are already a clique. Shaking his head, Zhuo Fan took a long breath to cool his jets. Princess Yongning, are you going to His Majesty to get me punished? Tell me then, has the second prince's matter settled? Of course. But that is all because of the third brother asking you to take it as the second brother's fault. The imperial father wouldn't have wasted words with you and would have had you. The princess looked mighty pleased. Fan snickered inside. Fatty's request was only to save the emperor's hide. In the current state of things, where all factions were at a stalemate, if the imperial family moved against the Luo clan, Regent Estate would be celebrating. It was waiting for the Luo clan and the imperial family to fight so it could deal with them both in one fell swoop. The imperial family wasn't about to blow all pretense for a mere second prince only to suffer in the end. Fan was sure of it. Only this ignorant princess was still delusional, thinking that the emperor was the number one in the world. Fan turned to Yun Shuang, having vented his earlier rage, turned serious. Miss Shuang, when your grandfather put you in my care, he said many things. But one thing he did stress, that you are useful. If you can't help me, what reason do I have for keeping you? Our clan doesn't need two bickering matrons. Luo Yunchang's eyes went red and she glared at him, yet positively giddy inside. The bickering matron he was referring to just now had to be her, whether unintended by the speaker, or by the listener's delusions. For Fan, who was the steward, to say matron, she took it as if it was more than that. Smiley face, it's a pun. Is steward and lit? Means steward's wife, but also busybody, housekeeper. When Luo Yunchang looked at Fan, her gaze drifted and her heart fluttered. Fan, though, only had eyes for Yun Shuang, waiting for an answer. Yun Shuang broke out of the princesses and Luo Yunchang's hug, then stormed out of the door. Fan sighed, this works out just as well. With Yun clan neutral, he didn't fear that Holy Maiden would end up in another faction. Yun Shuang opened the door and bumped into an 8-year-old child, throwing him to the ground. Yun Shuang cried, Xiao Dongzi, what are you doing here? Sister Shuang. Xiao Dongzi sobbed, grandfather is dead. What? Yun Shuang seized and paled. The calm Fan also froze and then an incredulous look appeared on his face. Someone killed 4 pillars high priest, demigod Yun Xuanji? Who dares commit such an outrageous crime in the heart of the empire? Chapter 376, Sealed Capital. Chapter 376, Sealed Capital. Elite Coder. Yun Shuang refused to believe it. She was stiff for a minute and then bolted for parish call the elders. We're going as well. Fan shouted. Luo Yunchang nodded and called them. Li Jingtian and the power couple arrived. They were around the young miss and princess, protecting them as they went along to parish. At the parish, Xiao Dongzi took them to where Yun Xuanji received guests, but what they saw inside had everyone stunned. Yun Xuanji was still in his seat, but covered in blood. He was clearly more than a little roughed up. His eyes gouged and his head slumped. Grandfather. Yun Shuang held the body and cried. Luo Yunchang and the princess were taken in by sadness, going to her to soothe her pain, having lost her father as well. Luo Yunchang could relate with Shuang's pain. Her eyes grew red and tears soon fell. Fan watched it all with a critical eye, turning to Li Jingtian. What do you guys make of this? The Yun clan has stood for 1,000 years in Tianyu. Always neutral and respected. Not to mention it is the third pillar. Just who could have done this at such a crucial time? Li Jingtian frowned. Qiu Yanghai nodded as well. He's been reduced to such a state, yet everything around him lies undisturbed and clean. That means he was brought here dead. Moreover, were his eyes scooped up because of their ability to see fate? If it were just for the eyes, Yun clan would have long since been kidnapped in the past 1,000 years. The death of Yun Xuanji is for a different reason. And since he died, the killer took his eyes while he was at it to do a little research. Gasping, Fan spoke with calm, but his mind replayed his encounter with Yun Xuanji. He found Yun Xuanji's tone odd at the time. The way he gave his granddaughter away felt less like gaining a helper rather than fulfilling the old man's will. Did he see his end coming? Fan squinted as his thoughts wandered. Luo Yunchang said, "You're all experts. After all this talking, have you found who killed Shuang's grandfather or not?" Yun Shuang's sobbing stopped and her ears sharpened. Princess looked interested as well. The imperial capital is in troubled waters right now. Who knows who did it? Fan shrugged. What matters now is finding a safe place for the Yun clan. Now I know why Yun Xuanji gave me Shuang. It was his final wish, having foreseen his own death. It's all my fault. With grandfather always doing the reading, I never tried doing it on him. If only I'd been more aware, Yun Shuang's tears resumed from pain. The two girls rushed to console her. Zhuo Fan smiled. Don't blame yourself. Your grandfather did it with this in mind. For his principles, the high priest knew he was at his end and chose to go like this. I truly admire his resolve and righteousness. To honor him, I will not only look after you, but your clan as well. Young miss, what do you say? Of course. Luo Yunchang nodded with resolve. Yun Shuang wiped her tears, moved by her new sister's kindness. Then she said to Zhuo Fan, forgive me, Steward Zhuo. I always took you for a demon, but you aren't even a bad man. Thank you. It's fine. I'm quite the baddie sometimes, you know. Ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan had a vague smile. With the imperial capital in unrest and the Yun clan without a leader, it will become the pawn of every player in pursuit for power. I propose that we move the Yun clan to Blackwind Mountain. There, they will be safe. What do you think? It's great, but Yun clan has thousands of people. Moving them all will require His Majesty's approval. Yun Shuang muttered. Zhuo Fan gave an evil grin. Fret not. Have you forgotten who I am? I am the best steward beneath heavens. Leave it to me. He handed Li Jingtian the cape that the emperor gave him. Elder Li, take this and leave with the Yun clan as quickly as possible. You three will look after them. Once outside the imperial capital, send someone to report what has happened to the imperial palace. Understood. Li Jingtian nodded and bowed, but used silent transmission when he noticed Zhuo Fan's look. Steward Zhuo, when did you become a saint? It's not your style. Or did you suddenly take a liking to that, miss? Stuff it. I'm not that dirty-minded. Snorting, Zhuo Fan sent back, ignore what happens around you and you'll soon be knee-deep in trouble. Every generation of the Yun clan has had a person that can read fate. With them in dire straits, it is the best chance to use them. You can't even see something that obvious. Li Jingtian got it at last and gave Zhuo Fan a sneaky thumbs up. Steward Zhuo, you're stupendous. You're reaping rewards from the hard work of others. Cut the crapola. They're here to take the heat, while we reap the fields. If the mastermind knew all his effort was in our favor, he'd probably have blown a gasket, or two. Hey, Zhuo Fan snickered. Li Jingtian said, Steward Zhuo, then you know who. Can't say. But this game, sure is fun. Zhuo Fan's eyes shone. Li Jingtian nodded and obeyed. With Yun Shuang as the clan head successor, she was most important. With her explanation, Yun clan accepted the transition, now marching for the Luo clan's domain at the city gates. The guards were about to stop the mass of people, but Li Jingtian unfolded the best steward beneath heaven's cape, shutting them up. Everyone knew by now that the Luo clan had Zhuo Fan as the best steward beneath heavens, who was of immense power. He moved the armies and governed the nation's affairs. A man such as him was not to be stepped on by a bunch of guards. Hence, under the three elders' escort, Yun clan left the imperial capital. 10 miles out, they had someone report to the emperor. High priest is dead. The emperor slapped the armrest of his throne, then slumped in it as tears flowed. High priest, you've helped me and the people so much. How? Now that you left, who will help me? Who will show me the way? Your Majesty, please restrain your grief. The death of the high priest affects the entire nation. I vow to find the killer and bring him to justice. Dugu Zhantian cupped his hands. He was in pain just as well. The high priest was the one to recommend him to the emperor. But in a time like this, he still kept the attitude of an upright Marshal. Sima Hui advised, Your Majesty, Marshal Dugu is right. We need to find the culprit. For the third pillar, high priest, to die in our own backyard, this is a grave insult to our empire. It must be one of those factions. Your Majesty should summon and reprimand them. That's right. I have put up with those deceitful scoundrels for too long. They've gone too far. The emperor shouted, Dugu Zhantian, seal the city. No one gets in or out. Call for the 8 noble houses, Zhuge Changfeng, and Yun clan survivors. I will question them personally. Understood. Dugu Zhantian bowed and rushed outside. The imperial capital was abuzz. The army moved like lightning in sealing the gates. The small-time merchants were clueless as to the reason and closed up shop as well. Within minutes, there was not a trace of people on the main street. It had turned into a haunted city. Zhuo Fan and his people waited in the Yun clan, looking after the body. Hearing the disturbance outside, Zhuofan grinned. Tilda, music to my ears. Humph, you just want the world to burn. Yongning scoffed. Zhuofan nodded with a winsome smile. True, that's just who I am. How else do you expect me to use my bag full of tricks? And now it's only rowdy, not a complete stalemate. Zhuofan's gaze was sharp and deep. Meanwhile, on Regent Estate side, despite the hubbub outside, Huangpu Qianyuan, Leng Wuchang and the elders sat quite casually in their seats in their hall. The door burst open and Dugu Lin in heavy armor stomped over. He cupped his hands. Estate Lord, by His Majesty's decree, please come to the Imperial Palace. What is it this time? Why all the commotion? Opening his lazy eyes, Huangpu Qianyuan said. Dugu Lin's reply was cold. High Priest, Yun Xuanji, was killed. His Majesty is tracking down the culprit. The High Priest is dead. All the calm left Huangpu Qianyuan, and even Leng Wuchang found it hard to believe the news spread like wildfire through the clans, everyone beset with the same reaction. Among the cries of shock, there were many doubts as well. Who in this land dares to strike down the High Priest? Chapter 377, Court Debacle. Chapter 377, Court Debacle. Elite Coda. In the expansive palace, the emperor sat on his throne with a hard stare cast below. Zhuofan, Huangpu Qianyuan and the house lords were on the left side, while Dugu Zhantian, Zhuge Changfeng and other officials were on the right. In the middle of the court lay the body of High Priest Yun Xuanji. Next to the body was his charming and sobbing granddaughter, Yun Shuang. The 8 houses sighed at this loss, along with every official. The emperor eyed every single one of them before snapping. To lay a hand on Tianyu's high priest is to think of oneself above the law, a taunt to the empire. Every one of you here is a person of renown in your respective field, all vying for power. What do all of you make of the high priest's death? Your Majesty, high priest seldom left his home and lived a dull life. Parish has few guards as well, being a peak profound heaven expert himself. The suspect could only be someone extraordinary, since it required power to kill him. And to move in and out without a sound, that would make the suspect someone with great sway within the empire. Dugu Zhantian bowed before the emperor and concluded his analysis, making sure to flick a cold gaze towards the left side. At the end of his speech, Leng Wuchang caught it and snorted. Marshal Dugu's vague explanation clearly projects the blame on the 8 houses. But have you forgotten? Besides the 8 houses, Tianyu has another strong power, the 4 pillars. Especially the first 2. What did you say? Dugu Zhantian flared. Leng Wuchang, are you accusing me of something? Humph, I've always been above board, upright and honest. I would never repay the high priest's kindness with such a vile act. Leng Wuchang flapped his fan open. Old Marshal, take it easy. I wasn't talking about you. It was a mere reminder to expand the list of suspects, to include everyone, lest the suspect slips away. Humph, in any case, I had nothing to do with the high priest's demise. I vow on my army's name. Only the culprit knows who he is, but I will be damn sure to wring him out. Dugu Zhantian roared at the heavens. Leng Wuchang merely shook his head in disdain. The old guy is good at fighting but is dumb as a post when it comes to politics. He'll never find the killer in his life. Though this affair has gathered many big players, and has a high potential of breaking the stalemate. It's as if an unseen hand moved everyone here from the shadows. The feeling is most unsettling. Leng Wuchang frowned in Zhuofan's direction, but what he saw was a tranquil and omniscient face. The emperor looked at their reaction and said, only an extraordinary person could have done this, that much is true. However, that does not give enough credence to make everyone here a suspect. Then, Holy Maiden, may I ask, who was the last person to see the high priest alive? Ah! Yun Shuang's eyes drifted to Zhuofan and she continued after his nod, Your Majesty, it was the Luo clan's steward, Zhuofan. SSS tilde. The hall was filled with gasps and all eyes turned to him. The emperor had just named him to be the best steward beneath heavens and now he was involved in high priest's murder. What validated him more as a suspect was Dugu Zhantian's analysis. This brash kid has run amok even in the imperial capital. Who hadn't heard of Zhuofan's handiwork? Wherever he went, he left chaos in his wake. He feared nothing and killed anyone that even looked at him funny. A demon archon, did he kill the high priest after a dispute? Funnily enough, everyone believed it. But to go as far as to kill the high priest, painted a target on his back, making him the public enemy number one. All their gazes turned morose. The emperor demanded, "Was it you, Zhuofan?" "Was what me?" Zhuofan furrowed an eyebrow and smiled. "If your majesty is referring to the last person to visit high priest, then yes, that would be me, mostly. But if we were to jump to conclusions and state that the high priest's killer and his last visitor were the same, that would be ill-advised. And how are you going to prove your innocence?" The emperor stared at him with a smirk. Zhuofan shrugged. "Easy, I have a rock-solid alibi. Me and the high priest got along so well together that he saw me out and even gave me Miss Schwanger. Ever since I left the parish, I was always with Miss Schwanger. She is my first witness. Next would be the second prince, since he kidnapped us. And then he asked Miss Schwanger if he had the right. Fine, I get it. You're absolved." With a wave, Zhuofan's voice drifted off and the emperor clenched his jaw in hatred. Zhuofan was clearly hanging the second prince's matter over his head. If the emperor let that matter come out, he'd be in even more of a mess. Then his thoughts drifted to his second son asking Holy Maiden to ascertain his right to rule and his claim on the throne. But how could he let Zhuofan say that? With Zhuofan's cunning nature, he was sure Zhuofan would drag his son down with him, dragging the entire imperial family in these muddy waters. They would not only lose initiative, but it would be a miracle if they could wash this shame. The emperor wished he could snap his second son's neck. "You just had to do that now?" Glaring at Zhuofan, the emperor nodded. "Steward Zhuo, wise and brave, honest and upright. It is highly unlikely for you to have done this savage act." Zhuofan beamed back a calm smile. Zhuge Changfeng and Leng Wuchang snickered inside. The two were aware of the second prince's fiasco all right, although not entirely. But Zhuofan, who was involved as a victim, had no qualms in pushing the emperor's buttons. The emperor is losing what little grip he has on the Luo clan. However, Zhuofan, was there anyone else in the parish before you left? Since Luo clan gave him the slip, the emperor moved to the next best thing, Regent Estate. Zhuofan nodded. He was quite blunt about it too. Estate Lord Huangpu Qianyuan and Sir Leng were guests there. And let me tell you, they weren't very friendly either. Huangpu Qianyuan and Leng Wuchang's faces sank. They were clear of their innocence, but feared Zhuofan and the emperor would join hands in dragging them in. The emperor lit up. The scamp finally got on point for once. He didn't get to enjoy barking at them though, not while Zhuofan said, but after only raising their voices a bit, they left. At the door, they bumped into me, where they raised their voices at me for a time. Irrelevant. The emperor dissed him, but Zhuge Changfeng had a faint smile, raising his hand. "No, your majesty, it is very crucial. Regent Estate is cleared of charges as well." "How?" The emperor shuddered. Zhuge Changfeng continued, "Your majesty, consider this." The two were furious yet didn't strike the high priest even when oblivious to the fact that there was someone outside. To not attack at that time, thinking they're alone, it goes on to show that they never wanted him dead. They are ruled out. That's a fairly good point. Zhuofan raised an eyebrow, putting on the most innocent look he could muster. Zhuge Changfeng chuckled at his reaction. The emperor's eyebrows jumped in rage. He was livid. Try as he might, he couldn't find anything in his investigation to tie the rest of the people there to the case. He finished with telling them not to leave town. Zhuofan was walking outside when Leng Wuchang left Huangpu Qianyuan behind and approached with cupped hands. "Steward Zhuo, we may be enemies, but thank you for that." Zhuofan grinned at his meaning and deadpanned. "We are enemies, yes, but we also need to coexist. Besides, I didn't do it for you. I know that, but one needs to give thanks when it's due, Steward Zhuo." "Ha ha ha, since when have you two been so close?" As Leng Wuchang bowed, a cheerful laughter announced the coming of Zhuge Changfeng. "Oh, Prime Minister Zhuge, thank you as well." "It's nothing. Steward Zhuo guided me." Zhuge Changfeng smiled. "I picked up on Steward Zhuo's intention of helping the Regent Estate when he recounted what happened at Parish and thought of lending Luo clan a hand. His Majesty's plan would have worked otherwise." Indeed, the Emperor is using the High Priest's death to summon the clans, an excuse to deal with the Luo clan and Regent Estate. Our houses may be strong, but the Emperor took this chance to use the power of the court and to eradicate us both. This sudden development could have been the end of us. Zhuofan squinted. Even with Luo clan in the clear and the Regent Estate becoming the patsy for murder, the emperor would have charged us to annihilate you, pitting us against each other. It drew every bit of power from the best steward beneath heaven's title the emperor bestowed upon me. I can't just bear the title and shirk responsibility now, can I? Ha ha ha, Steward Zhuo is sharp as a tack, able to analyze the bigger picture with a glance. I approve. Zhuge Changfeng cupped his hands. Leng Wuchang sighed with a nod. If we three pool our minds, no one could touch us, not even the emperor. What a shame. There's nothing to feel sorry about. With how lonely it is at the top, it'd be boring. Zhuo Fan grinned. Zhuge Changfeng and Leng Wuchang laughed, lamenting about the ill circumstances they met in interest made them enemies, but that didn't stop respect from forming. And now that they had worked together like clockwork to fight off the court, they felt like old friends. How often did one find a person after his own heart? What do you guys think? Who killed the high priest in the end? Zhuge Changfeng asked Zhuo Fan, and Leng Wuchang exchanged a smile. Do you need to ask? It all became clear the instant the emperor asked me who else had been at Parish. When everything is said and done, the imperial capital is still in the hands of the imperial family. The others saw the wisdom in his words and nodded, their hearts clear of all doubts. Chapter 378, Shadows Descend. Chapter 378, Shadows Descend. Elite Coder. The fourth pillar, Shadow Guard's Captain Shadow King, answers directly to His Majesty. He may even be around us right now. Zhuge Changfeng's eyes shone. Zhuo Fan and Leng Wuchang nodded. Zhuo Fan had heard of this Shadow King. Unlike the first three pillars, the fourth was very secretive and never left a trace, secretive to the point that only the emperor in all of Tianyu knew his face. Coming and leaving like a shade, worthy of being called just that. Steward Zhuo. A charming voice caught Zhuo Fan's attention. Yun Shuang rushed towards him in worry as she pleaded, Xiao Dongzi and the others are in danger. Please save them. Zhuo Fan knew that she was talking about her clan on its way to Blackwind Mountain. But how did she know they're in danger? Yun Shuang answered his thoughts, intuition. Holy Maiden can read fate, so her intuitions must be true. Zhuge Changfeng nodded. Zhuo Fan sighed, then I'll go take a look outside the imperial capital. Gents, please see that Miss Shuang'er arrives at the Luo clan safely. Ha ha ha, nothing to worry about. Leng Wuchang and Zhuge Changfeng smiled. Leng Wuchang frowned though. Is Steward Zhuo going to fight his way out of the sealed imperial capital? Ha ha ha, you're quite shrewd. I'm not that stupid to give the emperor an excuse. Laughing, Zhuo Fan's right eye flashed golden and he puffed out of existence. Leng Wuchang praised, Zhuo Fan is a true freak, with freaky skills to boot. If he wants to leave town, no one will know. Ha ha ha, so true. How else would you have suffered at his tricks? Zhuge Changfeng nodded. Leng Wuchang flushed. He gave Huangpu Qianyuan a word, then fulfilled his promise of escorting Yun Shuang to the Luo clan with Zhuge Changfeng. While he was at it, he made sure to investigate the Yun clan and Luo clan's ties. He learnt that the high priest left Yun Shuang in Zhuo Fan's care, to even assist him. Leng Wuchang and Zhuge Changfeng shared a look and realized the high priest's cause of death. He crossed the line. What still eluded them though was why the high priest was willing to give his life for the Luo clan. Oh, we're here. Thank you so much for escorting me. Yun Shuang bowed deeply. The two returned the gesture. Then Leng Wuchang asked, Miss Yun Shuang, what will you be doing with the high priest's body? Oh, as gratitude for His Majesty's favor, grandfather will be laid to rest in the imperial cemetery. Yun Shuang spoke, subdued. Leng Wuchang sighed, as it should be, although. Will the high priest ever rest knowing his enemy will pose at his funeral all to look good in front of the people? What? Yun Shuang shuddered. Sir Leng, what did you say? Oh, did I speak out too loud? Ha ha ha, sorry. I was only mumbling to myself. Just take it as if it never happened. Leng Wuchang played the fool. Yun Shuang frowned. There's no way. I clearly heard you say enemy. Do you know who killed my grandfather? Please tell me. Yun Shuang looked at him in tears, holding Leng Wuchang's arm. Leng Wuchang gave her a long look, but removed her hands with a sigh. Forgive me, but I know nothing. It's best if you ask Steward Zhuo. Leng Wuchang turned away, yet glee danced in his and Zhuge Changfeng's eyes when they met, leaving with one final bow. Yun Shuang just stood there dazed, muttering to herself, ask Steward Zhuo. Does he know who killed grandfather? After Leng Wuchang caught up, Zhuge Changfeng shook his head. Sir Leng, That wasn't very nice of you. Zhuo Fan helped you in the court, yet now you are leaving him with a headache. With the Yun clan and Luo clan's close relationship, if Yun clan causes trouble, Luo clan will be dragged into it. Ha ha ha, oh please, Prime Minister Zhuge. Didn't Zhuo Fan say we're only saving our own skin? And we're still enemies, aren't we? I'm sure he would have done the same thing if he were me. With how everything's a stalemate, there will be someone who will stir the water, no matter how much neither of us wants to be the one in the limelight. And since someone has stirred up the pot, we all have much to look forward to, don't we? Zhuge Changfeng's eyes shone with joy as well. Meanwhile, 20 miles out of the imperial capital, a throng of thousands of people was marching towards Windgaze City. Li Jingtian and the power couple were hovering above, ensuring their safety among the cooling breeze and the sun glaring through the mountains. This trip felt like a scenic route. It was then that the wind came down fast and hard, stirring the birds. The entire sky turned black in seconds. Then came the wails, grating at people's minds. Humph, they're finally here. Li Jingtian snickered and his knuckles cracked, his eyes shining in excitement. A martial fanatic would start feeling moody if he didn't get his daily dose of brawl. Qiu Yanghai and Xue Qingjian showed a wide grin as well. Fire and ice spread as they looked up at the encroaching darkness. Wu Tilda. The howling of ghosts announced the incoming black figures descending in droves. They all wore black armor and black helmets that hid their faces. Only the thin slits in those helmets showed heavy gazes, the only sight in this world of black and shuddering cold. They were not human, but closer to asuras from hell, with each of them wielding a half-a-meter-long curved blade. The image of demons was further engraved in the hearts of men. Swallowing dryly, the mass of people fell back. Although they had the numbers, these hundreds of black men released such an icy chill that it crumbled any notion of resistance. Li Jingtian frowned. These profound heaven experts aren't normal. They're about to act, be careful. TCH, what can some weirdo profound heaven experts do? I refuse to believe there is a second freak like Zhuo Fan on this earth. Xue Qingjian snickered and shot forth. Qiu Yanghai was right behind her. Only Li Jingtian just stood there, affixed on these interlopers' movements. Look out, it's the Luo clan's Ice and Fire Lord. The calm voice turned everyone in black armor serious. They held their curved blades ready, the blue glint on their tips indicating poison on top of being a fourth-grade spiritual weapon. Of course not that Xue Qingjian had a mind to care. With a laugh, she shot a white ray from her hand. Bang! Dozens of black men were encased in one huge iceberg then and there. And the subsequent explosion made sure only pieces of them were left. The black army fell back 2 steps, making Xue Qingjian laugh harder. What did I tell you? They're only profound heaven. They're not worth a single blow. Qiu Yanghai laughed as well, sucking up to his bossy lass. Lady's gaze is so sharp, seeing their bluff with one look. Unlike that scaredy-cat old Li, less than even a woman, he shot a fire dragon, resulting in an explosion that turned another batch of dozen black guys to ashes. Xue Qingjian covered up her sweet and charming giggle. Yun clan eased up, knowing their safety was in the hands of 3 bodyguards. They will safeguard their journey to their new haven. Li Jingtian twitched, ticked off by the happy couple, yet he just couldn't shake the feeling that these black guys were not the pushovers like they looked. In confirmation to his suspicions, the black guys watched their own teammates fall like flies, yet all they did was to be on guard as endless crackling commenced. The 3 elders watched in horror as the bloody pieces of bodies Xue Qingjian blew up shook with a sinister energy signature. The pieces let out a black smoke, each black mass forming a humanoid shadow. The shadows reassembled as each of them picked up their curved blade. And just like when they arrived, they released the same creepy snicker. Chapter 379, Mad Dipper's Showcase of Power. Chapter 379, Mad Dipper's Showcase of Power. Hi. Luo clan's Ice and Fire Lords are nothing to look at either. The shadows let out ghastly laughter while the other black men looked on from a distance. Qiu Yanghai and Xue Qingjian were startled yet being unable to accept the situation. Charged at them for another attack. It was utterly ridiculous how some profound heaven cultivators were mocking 2 8th layer radiant stage experts. Ice and fire surged once more towards the shadows, but it merely phased through them and made a loud bang far behind them. Those shadows weren't even real to begin with. The 2 jerked back, to which the shadows cackled louder and sharper. With the blow of an eerie wind, It was now the Shadows' turn to go on the offensive with their glinting curved blades. Boom tilde. The duo sent blows all this time, but not even one was of use. They couldn't lay a finger on them as the Shadows drew closer. They shot silver lights at them, forcing the tense couple back. A moment of carelessness was enough for one of the lights to land, dissolving their clothes. It was this close to poisoning their bodies too that only got the two of them even more frightened. And while they were pulling back, the Shadows grew cocky with laughter and movements. Qiu Yanghai and Xue Qingjian grew grave, unable to block the Shadows' advance. And there were still many more of those black men glaring over as well. Li Jingtian watched it all with a cold, trembling eye. Their cultivation method is like those pygmies' unity tactic, but not quite. The four scheming demons every move matched flawlessly, in tune with each other, while these guys fought by themselves. There was no mystical art behind it to allow them to phase in and out of reality either. It ought to have the same weakness either way. Li Jingtian's eyes flashed with resolve. The power couple had had enough, by the looks of it. Xue Qingjian cursed back, "Old Li, what are you standing around for? Do something." "Ah!" Xue Qingjian cried, getting scared by a curved blade flying at her neck. Qiu Yanghai was distressed, yet he was blocked by 6 Shadows himself. All he could do was watch his dear wife get skewered. Li Jingtian roared, "They have no bodies. Use soul attacks." The couple woke up to this obvious truth. Of course. We're radiant stage experts while they're only in the profound heaven stage. Killing with intent may not do them in, on account of their strong souls, but it should give them a pause. 2 hums later, a pulse flashed past. Bam! Like a tidal wave, it flung the black men dozens of meters back. The effect perked up the two. They were finally getting somewhere with removing these creepy guys. But it also stunned them as to how these profound heaven Shadows had such strong souls. The duo's powerful souls were unable to even make them pause, and only pushed them back. Nevertheless, they could see a solution to their headaches, restoring their calm while they were calm. The enemy was deadly calm as well, not one bit fazed about the fact that their weakness had just been found out. Fall in. From among the calm black observers, one aged and hoarse voice came. The cackling Shadows gathered together as they linked. They formed a giant net, floating in the sky as more of them joined. Their soul power surged. Squinting, the couple turned grave as they stepped backward. They had felt it too. The Shadows' combined soul power had reached the radiant stage. Unity tactic. Li Jingtian gasped. The black men laughed in pride. A soul unity tactic, to be exact. One made particularly with radiant stage experts in mind. Here he, get ready, attack. The Shadows snickered and released a sound at Qiu Yanghai and Xue Qingjian, who were balking under the pressure as they pulled back. They fought back with their own souls. Much good did that do. Their soul attacks against the Shadows' combined attack was like a breeze against a wall. The two panicked, sweating buckets. What's with these guys? They're way too creepy. No matter what they did, it proved to be pointless. Life and death art then. They had tried it earlier and it didn't do a damn thing. A stronger attack, but still very much physical, that left backing up more and more the only choice, leading to their increased vexation. And lead to the growing joy of the black men, cackling like victors. Whoosh! Li Jingtian flashed in front of the couple, facing the incoming Shadows. Elder Li, what are you doing? Qiu Yanghai shouted, grinning. Li Jingtian's eye shone. Hehe, isn't it obvious? Shutting them up. With jumping eyebrows, the couple was still clueless when Li Jingtian made a sign, staring at the Shadows. Humph, ignorant whelps, a Luo clan's elder isn't someone you can understand. Wraith style, third move, Necro Dragon's screech. Roar. Li Jingtian's roar sent the surroundings rumbling. The image of a dragon charged with claws and fangs bared, ready to tear anything to pieces. The Shadows only noticed when the dragon was upon them. Boom. The explosion shook the entire mountain range and cracked the land. The Shadows' perfect formation scattered like flies. They had no time to make sense of it as they blacked out. Falling to the ground, the Shadows scattered. A singular strike wiped out a dozen Shadows, laid to rest for good. This time it's a soul martial art. Look out. The black men moved back, losing their previous cool and watching Li Jingtian with trepidation. Unlike the ice and fire lords, Li Jingtian actually posed a threat, sticking his chin out. Li Jingtian laughed, full of himself. Anyone else? The black men looked at each other and started to make tactical steps backward. Yun Clan was overjoyed. Seeing Ice and Fire Lords at a severe disadvantage had them more than a little worried, and then came Li Jingtian, in the nick of time, dispersing the shadow net in a single strike, easing their worries all in all. Their safety was assured. As for the couple, they felt sour looking at Li Jingtian stroking his ego. With so many witnesses, they didn't look the part of elders, unlike Li Jingtian. It was a humble pie neither of them wanted to taste. Old Li, you're really something to know even a soul martial art. How come we've never seen you using it? Xue Qingjian grumbled, prickled by envy. Li Jingtian scratched his nose. Hey, you don't have to be jealous. When we joined the Luo clan, Steward Xue gave each of us a matching art. Each of us has our own strengths. I was also enticed by that life and death art of yours, but can I train in it? Necro Dragon's Screech is a sound martial art, but it is a body martial art at its core. Since you two train by combining fire and water, this art doesn't seem to fit you, does it? The two paused. He does make a fairly good point. They got over it just as fast as they had gotten jealous. Old Li, you deal with them while we bring up the rear. Xue Qingjian looked at the people and said, let's end this quickly. No problem. Li Jingtian laughed and shot up. The black men fell back farther in fear of Li Jingtian's gaze, but a cold shout fell from the black cloud above. Humph, ignorant whelp, you're awfully confident in your parlor tricks. Chapter 380, The Dreadful Black Captain. Chapter 380, The Dreadful Black Captain. Li Jingtian squinted at the sky. Something black was coming down swiftly. At a closer look, it appeared to be a pitch-black chain making rumbling sounds like lightning as it shot. For Li Jingtian, the pressure it released was akin to bearing the full weight of the world on one's shoulders. Everyone's breathing faltered, their feet plunging into the dirt, and their waists bent from the mountain-like pressure. Even eighth layer of radiant stage experts like the odd couple shuddered, the ground cracking beneath their feet in all directions. As for Li Jingtian, who felt the brunt of it, had his face shudder and his clothes rustled. The wind snapped at his face as his feet also sank deeper into the earth. Shocked, Li Jingtian instantly made the connection that this man was unlike those men in black. The men in black were like ants compared to this secretive person. He was the true expert among them. The person was yet to show himself, but the power behind his first strike had put Elder Li on guard. Gnashing his teeth, he squinted at the incoming black chain and his power erupted. Black energy curled around him, ghostly dragon claw. He chose to face the chain head-on. The voice from the cloud clearly stated his surprise in Li Jingtian's course of action, and praised, youngster is quite brave. A pity. Bam! With an ear-piercing explosion, Li Jingtian's black claw tightened on the chain. Yet the chain kept on going, slamming him into the ground. The earth shattered, picking up a huge cloud of dust. Yun clan cried out, frantic in their retreat. Qiu Yanghai and Xue Qingjian moved in front of the people, to fend off the incoming shock wave. When the dust settled, everyone gasped in horror. The mighty Li Jingtian was planted in a huge 100-meter-deep hole. Pale and panting, he was even bleeding from his mouth. Most shocked was the power couple. They were more clear than anyone about Li Jingtian's power, holding their own against him only by using their combined art. Yet this powerhouse was in a sorry state after just one blow. What kind of power was that? Looking up at the black cloud, the two picked up a person drifting down while holding the black chain. He was 9 foot tall, covered in black armor and a billowing black cape. Just like those men in black, he wore a helmet as well, blocking his features yet not his outrageous aura, instilling fear in all of them, including the elders. The first thought that came to mind was the feeling of death. Captain, the black men saluted. But instead of looking grateful to their boss for lending a hand, they reeked of fear. The captain ignored them. The enemy this time is a sharp thorn. It is not your fault for needing me to step in. They all eased a breath, a weight off their shoulders. Their captain had outrageous demands of them. He demanded success on every mission they were sent on, which was pretty much guaranteed when this inhuman power that was their captain joined the fray. The captain had a rule, though, to not let the conceit get to their heads. He would never interfere in a mission. If he did, the mission was deemed as failure regardless of the outcome, and the men would be subjected to harsh punishment. Having experienced that appalling pain once, no one wanted to go through such torment ever again. No surprise then that their first reaction on seeing the captain step in was that of lament. But with this being a special occasion and all, the captain waived all punishments. It was also a form of recognition from the captain's part that none of them could finish this powerful enemy, or why else would the captain step in? Bang! Li Jingtian threw the heavy chain to the ground and wiped the blood off his chest. With a jump, he was next to the power couple. The three watched their enemy with heavy silence, their fists shaking. The enemy this time was so strong, it had forced them to join hands, making them feel excited and dreadful. With a flick of his wrist, the black captain pulled back the chain and nodded at Li Jingtian. Junior, not bad at all. You're still breathing after taking a hit, so you do have some skill after all. Humph, arrogant punk. Li Jingtian shouted, you may be strong, but are not in the ethereal stage yet. There's not a single peak radiant stage expert out there who can kill me in one blow. His front was tough, but his insides were quaking. That chain almost took his life. The tiniest slip would have had the chain run through him. The black captain shook his head with a smile. Whelp, are you that ignorant or in denial? Two people may have the same cultivation, but not the same talent. That alone translates to a huge gap in power between them. Huangpu Qingtian was the prime example, and now it's your steward's turn. At merely the third layer of profound heaven stage, he took two peak radiant stage experts all-out blows. It actually reminds me of an old rival of mine. I would feel privileged if I could experience Steward Zhuo's masterstroke myself. The black captain sighed at the sky, strolling down the memory lane. The three elders never let him out of sight. Well, this has nothing to do with your Luo clan anyway. If it were up to me, I wouldn't be facing you so soon either. The black captain waved and said, please step aside, elders, I am taking the Yun clan. Get bent. If I just give them to you, I won't even be able to face the world with shame. Xue Qingjian snapped, shooting for him with Qiu Yanghai fast behind. The two were on him in a blink, striking his chest with their combined power fire and water fusion, life and death art. Boom. With a flash of heat, a white jet shot through the black captain's chest and shot into the distance. It then enlarged into a huge glaring light. Everything was burned to a cinder. With a bang, the black chain clattered on the ground, and with the dying of the light, the power couple started panting. There was no one in front of them. The two had finished him off. The two smiled and the Yun clan cheered. Li Jingtian grinned as well, but the black men's gaze made him think twice. Damn it. Because they were unfazed, their confidence was justified as well. While the couple celebrated, a familiar laughter came. Ha ha ha, is this the Luo clan's martial art? Quite impressive, I must say. Today I've truly lived and learned. It's something I have never seen in my life. I see why so many experts got turned on their side. That move might have worked on them, but now. SSS tilde. Black smoke gathered in the form of a person and then a suit of armor. The black captain was back with a smile. I am neither man nor shade, but in between. The same move won't work on me. The two's hearts seized. They should have known this by now. With the black men turning into black smoke to avoid physical attacks, their captain ought to follow the same logic. The earlier move was merely a test run to see if it had any effect, and indeed it didn't. And with the captain being far stronger than his men, it went without question that he could phase in and out as well. The black men had a hard time becoming real once they turned into shadows. While the black captain could do it at will. He was a true undying monster and a pain to deal with. The couple gnashed their teeth and fell back far too late. However, the black captain's wave brought the chain to his hand, and then it shot towards the couple. The two went flying with blood trailing from their mouths. They hit the ground hard, grievously injured. Humph, I warned you of this outcome. But since you struck first, you only have yourselves to blame. The cold eyes flashed in the darkness as the chain went for the two again. Li Jingtian covered himself in black energy and shot to intercept. Wraith-style's first move, soaring demonic dragon. Roar. With a black dragon image around him, Li Jingtian clashed with the chain, but it shattered his dragon. Li Jingtian was flung into the air and spat blood falling to the ground. He looked lifeless. At least he had covered for the power couple by sending the chain away from them. You two, cough tilde. This is as far as I can help you. Li Jingtian was panting, blood seeping into the ground around him. Qiu Yanghai nodded in gratitude. Old Li, you're a true friend. Yun clan was in tears, unknown if from fear or from the touching scene. Li Jingtian and the Ice and Fire Lords were usually at odds with each other, but when it came to fighting, neither left the other behind. The black captain paused, then his tone turned angry for the first time and he snarled, what camaraderie? Mad Dipper, since you want to save them so badly, you can die first. Whoosh. The black chain came for Li Jingtian to finish the job. Qiu Yanghai and Xue Qingjian struggled but couldn't budge at all. Li Jingtian sighed at the black chain reflecting in his eyes. Is this how I, the great Mad Dipper, would meet my end? Without even knowing who killed me? Ice and Fire Lords stared enraged, their fists clenched, but in times like these, one particularly familiar voice lifted their spirits. Yo, Spade, were you perhaps left for dead to find the Luo clan's bromance so revolting? Chapter 381, Divine Eye of the Void's Third Stage. Chapter 381, Divine Eye of the Void's Third Stage. Tilde. With a spatial ripple, an odd red glow shot in front of Li Jingtian before the black chain could land. The chain whistled back with a bang, deflected right back at the black captain squinting. The black captain heard a buzzing in his ear, and he groaned as he blocked the chain. What he didn't take into account was the monstrous power infused within the chain. His block did nothing to stop the chain from knocking his arm into his chest like a cliff had been smashed into him. The black captain flung backwards with an explosion. A hill that was a mile out crumbled, filling the sky with dust. The only sign something ever happened was the deep groove in the ground leading to it. It took everyone's breath away. Everyone was very clear about Black Captain's strength. Not even 3 great Radiant stage experts could topple him, but for this dreaded man to be blown away, how terrifying would his opponent be? All eyes snapped to Li Jingtian. He was still hanging by a thread, but now a cold figure stood before him, his white hair drifting in the wind, right hand flashing an eerie red and eyes cold as ice. Luo clan's steward, soaring demonic dragon Zhuofan. The black men grew tense as they looked at him, their faces twisting slowly. They had all heard of Zhuofan's illustrious name, but seeing him was believing what they had failed to grasp was the demonic dragon's power to push back their captain. It boggled their minds. They knew their captain better than anyone. Yet Zhuofan had flung that monster away in one hit. How is that even possible? The black men turned to the rubble behind them with hope. Captain. SSS tilde. Black smoke seeped from the rocks, reforming into a shadow. After a few more seconds, the armor took shape as well, returning back to his earlier daunting figure. The black chain flew back in his hand with a wave. Just what is that thing? Zhuofan's brow rose. Li Jingtian gasped. He saw Zhuofan calm but still advised, Steward Zhuo, watch out, he can phase in and out of reality. Normal martial arts don't work on him. The only way to fight him is with soul attacks. There is such a thing. In that case. His eyes flashed and Zhuofan gave him a deep look and laughed all of a sudden, having everything figured out. Elder Li, you guys rest. I'll take it from here. Zhuofan walked on with a thin smile. The black captain did the same, dragging the black chain behind, the clanking sound announcing his enemy's eulogy. The audience never left the two out of their sights. Their very lives depended on the one who came on top among these powerhouses. You cannot lose, Captain. The black men pumped their fists. Yun clan and Luo clan's elders looked at Zhuofan's back with faith. The elders had complete trust in Zhuofan, having been around him for a long time. Anyone or anything that stood in this little freak's path would stop their marching. He had never lost when he was weak, so how could he lose now when he was at the peak of Qianyu's power? No one dared to blink, lest they missed the two's clash. Tilde. The two stopped 30 meters away from each other. Zhuofan sized him up and snickered. The girl's intuition sure was spot on. The other faction even sent someone like you. I thought Elder Li and the 2 elders would be more than enough. Ha ha ha, how naive of me. You never wanted the Yun clan to fall into someone else's hand. The future of Yun clan is crucial to all factions. It cannot be left to the Luo clan alone. The black captain gave him a cold look, flicking the chain with a trembling hand. That punch sure was savage, reminding me of an old rival of mine. Zhuofan curled an eyebrow, a no-brainer for him to guess who this old rival was. He mocked the black captain. Did you win or not? Shuddering, the black captain flashed with unbridled rage. His fists clenched and he spat. I lost that day, but don't think this match will be the same. That remains to be seen. Zhuofan snickered. Unlike him, I am far more complex, not to mention a headache to deal with. Are you that certain of victory? Ha ha ha. The black captain's hand tightened and he flung the chain towards Zhuofan's left side. Laddybuck, see for yourself. The black chain snaked in the air and was at the left side of Zhuofan's face in a blink. Sneaky and swift, the chain was out of reach of the right hand, fully grasping Zhuofan's weakness in one glance. You old fock. Zhuofan grinned, being mentally prepared. This guy had only seen him use the right hand once and already knew to stay clear. The attack on his left side spoke volumes of this guy's experience. Facing such a guy half-assed would give you a one-way trip to hell. And thinking that facing him even full-assed would be a pain, Zhuofan had to take it seriously in any case. While the black captain knew Zhuofan's right arm was tough, the guy was clueless that his left arm threw a mean punch all the same. With a groan, the nimble chain landed in a dragon claw. The black captain cried, "Earth dragon claw? Hehe, right on." Zhuofan mocked him and yanked the chain. The black captain went with it, making a half-circle in the air before crashing into the ground. Hard the bang left another 1,000-meter-wide crater. Zhuofan grinned, the Yun clan was jubilant and the black men panicked. "Captain." Whoosh. They didn't get to finish as the black smoke shot from the crater straight for Zhuofan. Li Jingtian's side was shocked. "Steward Zhuo, look out. Only soul attacks work on that thing." "Hey, I know." Snickering, Zhuofan made a sign and roared, Wraith-style's third move, Necro Dragon Screech, Purple Lightning Flare. Roar. Unlike Li Jingtian's dragon image, Zhuofan's dragon was melded with purple lightning, the same lightning Zhuofan stored in his divine eye of the void. For some odd reason, his purple lightning stock was restored when he cultivated. It was endless how convenient that it happened just in time to deal with this pesky black captain. This was Heavenly Emperor's purple lightning we are talking about. A power above Yuan Qi, and the same one that had struck a sacred beast dead. It doesn't matter if it's soul or flesh, they'll both get skewered. With how Zhuofan used it in tandem with a sound martial art, this attack had turned into a literal killing move. Bam! The black smoke was poised to attack Zhuofan when the dragon reached him. He had yet to regain his bearings from the previous hit and the purple dragon slammed into him next. The purple lightning pierced the black mass, drilling an excruciating pain into the skull of the black captain. Then came the constant rumbling from the impact of lightning on every part of his body, akin to explosions from within. All the audience heard was an endless cry of agony, as the black captain rammed himself left and right like a headless chicken. By the time it all came to an end, the shadow reformed, but on all fours. Panting from exertion, the black men were shell-shocked. Not for the life of them could they recall when their captain was in such dire straits. Zhuofan snickered. "Spade, now do you know the difference between me and him? Hi, everything in this world has a weakness. Don't think for a second that your phasing body will get me exhausted from using only physical attacks. Humph, I know all too well just what kind of specimen you are. It would have been another matter entirely if you were in the ethereal stage, but it just wasn't meant to be. Humph, enough with the theatrics. What can a mere spirit puppet do? Why, you know." Eyes trembling, the black captain watched Zhuofan like a monster. This is a secret art that was lost 5 centuries ago. How? I'm just that clever. Slanting his head, Zhuofan showed a cocky grin. "Soul puppets are special, but not invincible. You may not have a body, but I have my own way to make sure that you'll stay dead. You showed off in my presence and you beat my men. Hehe, don't even think of escaping." Zhuofan cackled and 3 golden halos shone in his right eye, divine eye of the void's third stage, Mirage World. Chapter 382, Mirage World. Chapter 382, Mirage World. Tilda. An unnatural space ripple spread around and the black men and their captain saw the world twist before their very eyes. In a blink, their view was replaced with endless white light with nobody else in sight. Bewildering array. Black captain cried, "Impossible. When did you set it up?" Ha, that's private information." Zhuofan faded in with a twisted smile. "Spade, turning into a spirit puppet gave you a brilliant escape route. A spirit puppet can fade in and out of reality, neither man nor shade. While elusive, at the same time, you don't have a body. Your soul has nowhere to hide, making it easy to just poof you out of existence. One other thing, your soul sense is 100 times more acute than a normal person. An advantage, yes, but not when it comes to experiencing pain." Zhuofan punctuated by stabbing the horrified black captain with a blade. A wail like no other echoed. Black captain was soaked in sweat and crumbled to his knees. His eyes were full of fear towards Zhuofan. Clang. Zhuo Fan had another blade flash in his hand and casually went for his back. This time the black captain jumped back. Just when he thought he was in the clear, the pain came and so did the shrieks. Looking back, he saw a bright long sword stuck in his back, the same one Zhuo Fan had. Ha ha ha, try not to dodge. You'll only waste your energy. With a wide grin, Zhuo Fan said, didn't I tell you, having 100 times more acute soul sense is not all it's cracked up to be, especially when it comes to pain. Props for figuring out this is an illusion, but in here what's real and fake have been switched. And guys like you, who use phasing as an escape, will find themselves much weaker than anyone else. Not to mention the time here is slower. I may have taken my sweet time poking you twice, but outside, it hasn't been a second. We've got all the time in the world to enjoy. Ha ha ha, here everything's an illusion, while outside the pain is real. But the moment you cave in, is the second you will die. Zhuo Fan sported a twisted grin and flicked 4 blades into Black Captain's chest, getting him acquainted with a world of pain. This was Zhuo Fan's illusion, his world. In this world, he made the rules. In here, he was God. The Black Captain was unstoppable outside, while in this illusion he was being toyed around like a powerless doll, and when the pain proved to be too much for his mind to handle, his soul would just fly away. This was Divine Eye of the Void's third stage, Mirage World. A place where Zhuo Fan created and controlled everything. This breakthrough in Divine Eye of the Void came somewhat fast, having lacked the needed soul power to achieve it. But through the refinement of the Sea Phantom wings, the strange power of the wings resonated with Mirage World, leading up to a wonderful coincidence. This also happened to be the straw that broke the back of the pesky Black Captain and his cronies. Outside the illusion, wails echoed out, jerking the people from shock as they blinked at the prideful shadow. Zhuo Fan was just standing there as well, facing the previously outstanding black men as they rolled on the ground shouting in agony. Like they are getting frigging tortured. Just how big a gap in strength is there? Steward Zhuo stays true to his reputation as a monster. The elders were dumbstruck. They knew Zhuo Fan was awesome, but this was a bit outrageous. He flipped the tables with just a glare. Yet the glare still wasn't over and the enemies writhed in pain. The trio looked at each other and sighed. They were Luo clan's elders, Zhuo Fan's backup. But the kid had outgrown them, entering a totally new realm. Gazing at the high and mighty white-haired figure, the three sighed. The little freak is so fast, not even our ass-kissing can catch up. How would they know that the Mirage World was sucking Zhuo Fan off soul power? He may look cool standing there, his 3 golden halos flashing in the right eye, sending the enemies into a world of hurt. But his brow was soaked, his mind raving. These damn rotten bastards can still take it. I've got 3,600 blades poked into them, yet they just won't die. This must be the fruit of the torturous training they do each day to build such grit. Just as he finished that thought, a black man held his head with a groan, rolled around 100 times on the ground, kicked his legs at some point and then just laid there. In the real world, black smoke drifted out of armor. The gear clattered to the floor, empty. Zhuo Fan grinned and spat. It's about time. These spirit puppets are at their limit. Tilda. Case in point, after the first shadow keeled over, a second and third were bound to collapse, leaving behind empty armor. Some didn't even get to fall, their souls gone like the wind in mid-fall. Zhuo Fan eased his breath. The fewer they were, the lesser the strain on his soul. It didn't take long for the hundreds of black men to sputter in smoke, leaving the captain, still hugging his head with a clenched jaw. Zhuo Fan snorted with a wet brow. His soul was reaching his limit, his vision blurred. But he hung on, holding the black captain in the Mirage World, just a little more and he's done for. Zhuo Fan smiled inside, his knuckles white. Whoosh. A pebble shot for Zhuo Fan at breakneck speed. So small yet containing the power of a mountain, forcing Zhuo Fan to take a pause. Yet Zhuo Fan had 2 aces with him, his beastly fists. Any one of which could deal with such a feeble threat. His right hand moved and caught the pebble. But it proved to be enough of a distraction for the Mirage World to break. The black captain sensed the real world and jumped through the cracks. Steward Zhuo, the guy's escaping. Li Jingtian shouted. Zhuo Fan's right eye flashed with 2 golden halos. Divine Eye of the Void's second stage, Void Annihilation. Whoosh. A spatial ripple shot for the captain. He turned into smoke trying to dodge, but when Void Annihilation passed through him, He felt an agony like never before. Even being a spirit puppet, he couldn't avoid the effects of space cracking. His soul was jolted and wounds laced his mind. The captain cursed inside. What kind of a freak is he? He has so many fancy and powerful tricks not even that guy can match. Boom. Void annihilation ran through 3 mountains before taking to the sky. Fan was about to send another one. Black Captain was too scared to take any more blows like that and turned into black smoke, drifting among the Yun clan. Fan held back, lest he harmed innocents. The Black Captain laughed, having found his window, flying closer to the people. The crowd shrieked as he trapped a 19-year-old kid in his smoke and fled. Help me. The youth peed in fright, shouting his lungs out for help. Fan frowned. Spade, let him go. Yun clan is under Luo clan's protection. Harm him and we will become mortal enemies. Humph, do you take me for a fool? You'll kill me regardless. The Black Captain shouted. Fan, you got me this time, but we will meet again. See you around. The Black Captain turned into a black wind and wrapped tighter around the wailing youth. He was gone the next second. Yun clan watched in worry while Fan stomped. He looked positively annoyed, except for that vague quirk on his face. The Black Captain was long gone, yet Fan looked at the clouds. Still, Yun clan was touched by his desolate back. Steward Zhuo is working so hard for us. He is so heartbroken at the loss of one child. Having rested all this time, Li Jingtian was feeling better. He propped his weak body up and sighed. Steward Zhuo, you don't have to blame yourself. He only got one man. Claptrap, who's blaming himself here? Fan snorted. The kid is already an adult, yet he hasn't even awakened his blood. A waste. It makes no difference if he's gone. But we are here to look good for the Yun clan, so we can't harm their people. That sadness and self-blame routine is there to make them respect us more. Yun clan will be far more willing to follow us now. Li Jingtian's face twitched and he nodded. Steward Zhuo is Steward Zhuo. He will never change. He is clearer than anyone about what to do for his own interests. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.